Hey everyone, it is time for Hotline League, and boy, it is going to be a banger because we have both world stuff and some North American conference stuff to talk about. I guess that's what we're calling it now. I don't know. Riot won't tell us, so I just have to, whatever the next LCS thing is going to be, that's going to be talked about on this show. We got some banger calls according to Cubby. He's already pulled some into the chat. So let's go around and do some quick introductions because I know we want to get into this stuff. There's a lot to talk about tonight. First off, speaking of Cubby, how you been?
Good. We're going to hope that the rebrand of whatever the new America's LCS or whatever that looks like is better than the rebrand of what's now in Mark Z's chair on this show. So personally, I'm hopeful that Mark Z can help out, but we'll see.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, glad to hear that you're in good spirits. Okay, next up, we have Raz. Coming to us from Oh, his headphones are dying.
Okay, it's back to me.
Okay, yes. Raz, how you doing?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you for inviting, two of the African migrants to work for free on your show once again, Travis.
This is how we're starting the episode. Do I need to take another reset on the episode show?
Flashback. At least it's not a sponsored segment, Travis. At least it's not a sponsored segment.
Okay.
See?
Well, you know what? We're gonna move on to our next intro. Is none other than Jamada. Jamada, thank you for staying up once again. It's always great to have you on the show. How you been?
Yeah, great. And I would actually like to correct Raz because I would technically be a Caribbean migrant. Let's get that right.
What boat brought you to the Caribbean, friend?
I'm ready for the next 2 hours.
We move away from racial conversations and we get into some good news. Cubby referenced Mark Z at the start of the show. I would like to give a shout out to former host of Hotline League and current LCS commissioner, whatever it is, for getting married. He's currently on his honeymoon right now, but congratulations to Mark. Unfortunately, my wedding gift to him has insisted is me watching over his animals. So I have been visiting the animals because he lives not too far from me and making sure that they are still.
What animals specifically?
There's two of them. I don't really know. They're really annoying. Yeah. One of them hisses at me, and it's I'm not trying to get people timed out in chat. So
the dogs sound wonderful, Travis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. I have to send him pictures to make sure that he knows. But one of them I have not been able to find. The orange one, it just like hides somewhere, and I don't know where.
You lost his cat.
Animal? Okay, you just said the word.
Yeah, I couldn't find an alternative. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I don't think I have. The first couple times I went by, there was like as soon as I opened the front door, there'd be like a little orange, like blur into one of the bedrooms, and so I assume that's where it's just chilling. But listen, the whole point was I'm just trying to say congratulations to a friend.
Congratulations,
his wedding.
Congrats.
It's been cool.
That's awesome. I did have something happen recently.
Oh, now we're all just sharing our accomplishments. Okay, what's up? Oh, wait. I think I know what it is.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. I went to a place called Soho for the first time. It's perhaps the most odd, weirdest setting I have ever been.
Wait, you're talking about Soho House?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I went with a friend. You know this mutual friend, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And oh my God, now I know where all the rich, posh LA white people live. Basically, if you have an image of LA in your mind, that is the
You realize that there's one of these in like all the major cities, usually multiple. Like
really?
I've been to the one in London, for instance.
Which one did you go to? Because there's like
the one that's in Soho, right? Isn't there an actual area called Soho or something?
Well, there's a place called Soho, yeah. But it's kind of like that's the West End. That's where you like high-end shopping, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it had like a pool on the rooftop, and have you been?
Not the specific one you're talking about, but there's like they're kind of a dime a dozen.
Yeah,
it's
especially
ridiculous.
Once you get to central London.
Yeah. I saw like children in Gucci. I was like, you're outgrowing that in 3 weeks.
There were children.
Why are you wearing
whenever I've
Gucci?
been there, it's only been like
Oh,
people in their
man.
20s. So
Oh yeah, they brought their kids. Maybe I was on the wrong day because when I went to the washroom, by the way, first of all, here's a washroom story. There's a
you
male
mean
washroom.
restroom?
I'm Canadian, so I'm saying it the correct way, I'm sure. So I walked into the male restroom and I was like, okay, it's being used. Rich white woman walks by. I'm like, okay, she just went to the wrong one. That's fine. I go in, lock the door. You can only lock the door for the toilet. So, if you want to wash your hand in this tiny ass room, you have to unlock the door. That's fine. But then I open the door after taking a dump and I'm surrounded by children and a rich ass dad. And he just does not care about the privacy whatsoever. And they have an army of children has blocked me from washing my hands at the sink. So I just had to scooch my way through, wash my damn hands as everyone is just having a family reunion in this small ass washroom. They could have just waited outside and they refused to do so. All I'm saying is that was a weird ass experience. I felt like I was a step away from Get Out. Thank God I escaped. And I had the meal for free.
Shout out I thought this was going to be the story of how you got your luggage back, because we'd been following the luggage saga for a while, I feel
That's
on
true.
the show. So congratulations on getting the luggage back.
It took a week. I ended up buying more underwear just because I was like, what if it never comes back? That was a legitimate fear. Thankfully,
Do you treat yourself? You get some nice undergarments?
I got some good undergarments. No, I got the most basic ones, honestly. I was like 30 packs. I'm getting it. It was plain and black. Sounds like me. So I ended up getting 30 of them. Now the weird part is because the old undergarments have come back, I just have 50 underwear. So I will never go dry again, guys.
Laundry does not exist anymore for you.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
It just
All
doesn't.
right. Let's get the ball rolling on the show. And let's do that first by shouting out our sponsors. Really appreciate NZXT, Prize Picks, and Pagoda for sponsoring the show. It's been awesome to have them all as partners during Worlds. So love all of them, and we'll be talking more about them as the show goes on. In fact, I just heard the air fryer ding go off for the Pagoda snack break, which we'll be doing in, I don't know, a couple calls from now. But yeah, let's talk about what happened this past week. So against all odds, FlyQuest did not make it out of quarters. But they did it. And they didn't make it out in the best way possible, which was a sick 5-game series where they let everyone believe that they could make it out. And I feel just like I want to go back. I haven't done this yet, but I need to go back and find all those threads that are like, 8 monkey teams, 1 monkey team gets out of the groups. If you had half the teams that were just nothing but monkeys. That Reddit thread, the sort of G2, this format sucks and G2 should be there and not FlyQuest and all this stuff. Everybody thought that FlyQuest was going to suck, and I think they were really good. So I feel very, very happy with how things went, even if we're not making it onto quarters. It is a bit of a heartbreaker that it's just shy of making it, because I feel like that would have been incredible. But yeah, I don't know if you guys had any other thoughts on it.
Would have been the biggest upset for me of all time. I mean, after game 1, FlyQuest had me believing. I went into the series hoping that they would get 1 game, and I thought they would. But after game 1, for me, it was clear that they played that map so well that they could actually take the series against Gen G for me. I think that a lot of people are getting hung up on how good FlyQuest drafts were and taking some credit away from the players and how well they played, because they still had to pilot out those drafts really well.
Yeah.
And I'm someone that I believed in FlyQuest. I was one of the few people that had him above TL in my tier list going into summer, which was a bit crazy. But I really believed in the pieces that they had. I thought the roster made a lot of sense from the start, just pairing Masu and Busio with Bwipo and Inspired. And these guys hit their potential in a way where they proved that they could compete against the tournament favorite coming in. And that was pretty cool. So, yeah, I mean, shout out to FlyQuest. I'm sure we'll have a lot of calls about them. But we had a small watch party over at our place. And it was really fun to stay up and watch that best of 5, even if game 4 and 5 went a bit closer to how I expect the series to go. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They played like a real underdog.
Yeah.
That was crazy to me.
Yeah.
I know there's, I'm going to save my takes until later on, but the fact that they played like real fucking underdogs and really threw out haymakers. Yes, the creative picks, but also just the way they executed in fights to me was the most impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I won't be the Grinch.
Oh, yeah. Say nothing.
Okay, let's wait.
Just sit there like you should.
I have more nuanced takes. I will say that at the very least, I feel happy for my North American compatriots. That at the very least, you feel, you know what it's like to have a G2 in your region now. Like that series was basically the emotion that we get most internationals nearly making it, but very clearly there just being one sequence of play that just fucks up the entire vibe. Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that as we get more calls, etc. There were, I know, easy to forget for North American fans, but there were 3 other matches that were played as well. I think T1 has officially arrived at Worlds, which is what it usually takes them a bit to warm up, but we're now at this point where they're playing controlled and cool, and we'll see how
the fuck happened to Top Esports.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll get some calls, I'm sure, about that as well. But we'll talk about all that. We have semis coming up in just about 4 days or so. So that'll conclude our Paris adventures for Worlds, but we'll talk about that. And then I think we also, it's funny because Cubby keeps going at the start of these shows, Travis, you want to talk about off season? And I'm like, sure, we can take a couple calls. We haven't taken any calls the last couple of episodes. So I think it's time to officially wade into that, and I think it'll be fun that we have both an EU and NA personality on to talk about this Sheep Esports Jojo report about him reaching a verbal agreement with Mad Lions. He's teased a bunch on social media too, so I think it's fair to discuss. But I think there are some other rumors as well that we can get into if folks want to. Anything else I'm forgetting that's happened in the past week that anybody wants to talk about? It's been the most of it, right? Raz went to Soho House and got his underwear back.
True.
I mean, the other 2 series, shout out to HOE, BOG, and Weibo LNG. I know that we didn't mention those by name. Obviously, we mentioned the quarters, but we did get surprises. So, I mean, I think the tournament's been great so far. And, yeah.
Cool. Well, do you want to explain, Cubby, how the show goes? Because it's been, I think, a couple episodes since we've done that.
If you guys want to join Travis, Raz, Jamada, myself, with any and all takes, you can go to the Discord, which would be discord.gg/Travis or command Discord in either chat. Enter me with your take at Cubby. If it's good, I'll pull you in the waiting room. We'll go and grab you and come talk on the show with us. So I have 3 good takes at the moment and a lot banked. So if you want to be pulled onto the show, you have to sit in one of the calls. If I don't see you in one of the calls, I can't drag you to the waiting room. So that's the only note. We've had some good takes where I have to ask people to sit in the call, but you do have to kind of show in the Discord.
Yeah.
So
join the Discord stuff makes it easier for all of us and for you, and guarantees that you're getting on the show. If assuming you have a good take. Speaking of that, if you are a sub of the Twitch channel or a member of YouTube, first off, thank you for doing that. It helps more than you know. Having those kind of consistent memberships, subscriptions, etc. It's very, very helpful, especially as we get into the quieter end of the year where there's just not as much content and sponsorships are just not always on around that time. So doing that stuff is great. But also the cool benefit of it is that it lets you sync with your Discord, your YouTube or your Twitch, and you'll get access to the Subtopics channel, which does move a little slower, and so it's just another way of getting on the show. No guarantee that it'll happen, but I think we tend to look at them from both channels, and if there's less in the subs, it gives you a better chance. So please consider doing that, and make sure that if you do, you sync with the Discord. So I guess, do you want to get into this, Cubby? Do we have callers ready to go?
Oh, yeah. Well, I want me to grab the first one?
Okay, yeah, go for it. Off goes Cubby. Thank you to, speaking of subs and memberships, thank you to 504 Caesar with the $4.99. Okay, Jamada, I want to ask you, maybe I should have asked you this before the start of the show. How do you feel about the James Harden jokes? Like, is it annoying?
Oh.
Do people not like it? Like,
No. It's fine. It's
Okay.
as long as it's in good jest.
Yes, yeah.
It's kind of like anything.
Well,
It's
this
like
person
Rez and I
sent
being racist to each other.
a $4.99
It's kind of whatever.
super chat and said, "No offense to James Harden, which amazes me that he's a league fan and on your show, but the Spurs are going to wipe the Clippers." Says
There it is.
504 Caesar. So
Why is that offense?
Yeah,
no,
not bad.
I don't know. I think the idea that I assume that James Harden is on the Clippers.
Yeah, but the Clippers are trash, so let's be real.
Well,
Yeah,
he's
that's
saying
true.
no offense because he's saying that James Harden is going to lose. All right,
I
whatever.
mean,
We have
no shame in losing to 1B.
we have Pacemaker here. Pacemaker, where are you calling from?
I am calling from Columbia, Maryland.
Columbia, Maryland. What do you want to talk about on the show?
All right, so my take's a little beefy, so stick with me.
Okay.
So I think that fans do a poor job of apportioning both blame and success between leadership and players. I think like the most recent example of this is the very well deserved praise of Masu and Busio. But at the same time, I think not enough praise and kind of an overlooking of Arrow and Mithy and how they've been instrumental to growing those two players, as well as Andrew Barton for putting this FlyQuest together. And then on the other hand, I think there's like this gross vilifying of Jojo and like seeing LCS fans celebrate his rumored departure to EU and like them blaming Jojo for C9's failure. And I feel like that shows that fans often don't properly credit the leadership that makes good teams thrive. As a throwback, actually, like here's one that I think Cubby will appreciate. Lots of people like to hype up Danny, and Danny was an insane player, but like nobody talks about Draxir being his positional coach and how much that must have been instrumental for Danny's growth. And I feel like that's just fans just don't do a good job highlighting like the leadership and the support staff that like lead to these teams succeeding, and also the poor leadership that leads to these teams failing.
All right. So you want more people to talk about the leadership. Would you say leadership? It's tough because you're saying leadership, but then you're talking about like positional coaches, which is not necessarily like a role that I consider to be like leadership.
Yeah.
I feel like oftentimes positional coaches are like the furthest down the run.
I mean, the first thing that I would ask for this is like, what public information do you know besides just looking at results, like where you would want to attribute more or less credit to the people behind the scenes?
Absolutely. Great question. I think it all comes down to like previous historical results from players and just objective evaluation of talent. So like as a not current example, because I feel like everyone's talking about JoJo, and I feel like you can stretch this back to other teams. 2022 TL, right? Like I consider that a leadership failure, not necessarily in like the coaches were bad, but it's like that team was probably not intelligently put together, and I feel like that's a leadership failure. And like halfway through the year they were clearly having struggles and no clear changes were made. And it's like as much as people want to vilify players, it's like I think nobody's really looking at TL enough and being like, you shouldn't have put this roster together, you made no mid-year changes. And then I think the same for FlyQuest last year. I think FlyQuest objectively had a fantastic roster that should not by any means have missed playoffs. But it's like all of those players are talented. We've seen all those players thrive. Something else is clearly up. And I feel like it's leadership's job to create an environment in which those players are supposed to do well. And they're failing to create that environment.
So for me, it's a 25-7. Like it's like a 20-80. I was like 20-80 in terms of if I agree with you and don't agree with you. On the points in which I agree with you, it's the 20, because I think when it comes to an organization building a great squad, people should be giving praise to. And I think they did give praise to, like, when NRG won their championship, they gave praise to the coaching staff. But that was because I think the broadcast really heavily, and the team as well, and their socials, heavily focused on how many fucking positional coaches and coaches themselves had on the stage and everything like that. It became more of a theatrical point to show that this was a thing that was happening. And also people just recognized that you brought the same core 3 players over 3 years, and they just got better over time. So like that you can clearly see as, hey, this has to be the organization succeeding in one way, shape, or form. Like either the coaching is turning into something, or the atmosphere is positive enough where they can kind of grow on their own. Like something is happening, and that's where the 80% comes into play. Because no one even knows who the fuck Draxler is. Like, positional coaches in general, like, even though I do know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know him personally, but I know the name, and I knew that he was a positional coach, and I know, like, Arrow's a positional coach, and, like, we will know and see the names of positional coaches, but do we actually know what they do? Absolutely not. So, like, unless if the player or the organization then gives them credit, or if there's, like, a content piece that shows something, but most of the team content pieces like will literally show nothing because they don't want to give a competitive edge. So like, okay, so we just know that the person's on staff, and most of the time, like a vast majority of the time, we're not hearing what they've done. And this also extends to the actual head coaches too. So it's like, I have no idea. How am I going to get praise unless if I know that person personally? And for the most part, a lot of the times the rookie players will give credit to their veteran players on that same roster rather than the coaching staff a lot of the times, because it'll be like, well, actually, I learned a lot about the game from Inspired or Impact or Bwipo, like somebody that is on the team that is obviously directing a lot within the game and also giving harsher feedback outside of the game. So a lot of the times you are just being led by the organization or the player that's showing you what they've done. So it's just really tough unless if the coach shows their work in some way, shape, or form. Freely in chat, Freely Dan mentions like Vagar V2. Vagar V2 is somebody that constantly shows his work on socials and is somebody that like will also just make random videos critiquing a player or critiquing a build or critiquing something. So it's like a lot of the time you're like, oh, I know what their work is. So that would be my kind of big pushback on that one.
Is it alright if I respond quickly?
Go for it.
So I completely agree with you, for the record. I also think that like there's something to be said, like not necessarily looking at Draxler and being like Draxler was a huge part, but just looking at like Danny has a phenomenal year, right? It's an incredible player, had a phenomenal year. What's the context of his year? They hired a positional coach. I think the majority of teams in the LCS do not hire positional coaches. I think it's a very rare few that do. I think Spawn also, like, just to kind of talk about, like you said, players don't really know unless it's shown. I think TL has done a great job, like, showing Spawn doing that this year, and credit to them for doing that. And I do think, like, part of it is, like, the snapshot into the organization that we're given. But that's also, like, we see players every weekend play, right? And so that's why I think fans latch onto them, and that's why fans tend to apportion blame or celebration to players, because we see the players play every single weekend. And so as much as I'm like, yes, the orgs should be highlighted, like we can only do so much based on the information that we're given with orgs and stuff. I also think there's a fair thing to say that like if we see a player do well, we should try to understand the context of why they're doing well and not just player click good, therefore player good.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say before I hand it off, because I don't want it to just be us speaking while everyone else is silent sitting, is yeah, I mean, I agree. The thing is, I think Team Liquid did a great job of showing the speeches that Spawn has, or just like the reactions, rather than any of the work, obviously, for obvious reasons. Like the Team Liquid doesn't want to show that. But they also didn't really show the fact, like, what's MashMe doing? MashMe, I know, is like an incredible positional coach, just because I've seen his work a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's working behind the scene in Team Liquid, but we don't know anything that he does. So it's like, that's an example of we don't know how much a person does behind the scenes, so it's hard to deliver that praise there. But I did like a point that you had made about blaming Jojo for C9's failures. I think people are really dogpiling because of the whole lateness thing that came out. Now I'm seeing tweets of people calling him lazy and shit like that, and I'm like, guys, you don't know if every player's lateness was publicized from North America and Europe. There's a competition. Like that is a legitimate competition in and of itself, but it's because C9 wanted to get out of a fucking crazy contract that they obviously used it to get out of it, publicized it, and now everyone is riding the whole Jojo is a lazy piece of shit train, which is just not true, right? So I think for sure there are elements of people are blaming when it's, it's easy to scapegoat, or they're providing praise when, So I think there's an element that's correct in there, but I will always get pushback on when it comes to coaches, positional coaches, like stuff like that.
I also just don't think like people, to reference the MashMe thing, people don't care. Like that's the fact of it is like you know why
It is
TL
kind of
doesn't.
sad, but yeah.
The reason why TL doesn't publicize like what's going on with their positional coaches is because if they uploaded a video that's like how our positional coaches help the players, nobody would watch that except maybe some of the people on the Riot broadcast, you know, and maybe like Raz or somebody could reference it and be like, oh, I want to shout out this person. They've been pretty good, which I guess you could argue would be fair, you know, like, but I don't think that is going to ever get to a point where like the general fan base is like, oh man, this positional coach is just amazing. I think what you generally have is the audience sort of just makes like a general assessment around coaching and leadership, and then
Are they winning or no?
Yeah, are they winning or not? Like, is Spawn good or not? Like, you start to get a little more granular when you start to have repeated success. You know, I think one thing that is worth the shout out is that Andy Barton has been able to do first at GEG and now at FlyQuest like a pretty good job of building around a combination of good international talent and like North American rookies. And so I think, you know, it's worth like it. I would accept the idea of, oh, we should shout these people out some, but I do think it is asking a lot of like the general LCS fan to be like, oh man, I'm seeing this player do so well. It's because of that positional coach that like no one ever hears or talks about. That's, you know, what's going on here. So I'm not saying that it's not. I am not trying to say we should not highlight people who are doing cool things behind the scenes, but I don't think it is reasonable to expect people to have like a pretty broad understanding of like the mechanics behind, you know, what is happening. That being said, I will still try to do this. Like I shouted out Spawn a ton leading up to the playoffs because I was just like, this guy might be one of the best coaches we've ever had in North America, and I feel like he deserves that. And I think it makes sense to have similar conversations around FlyQuest staff and these types of people. So yeah, I think similarly, by the way, C9, who underperformed a ton this year, you know, allegedly did not have much staff compared to the other teams. So, but that is something we've talked about, and I think it's something C9 fans have talked about. So I kind of disagree on a couple fronts. I agree with Raz that I'm in 20%, out 80% on this take. Jamada,
It's
Yeah,
so
I feel
hard.
like
you're so quiet.
I feel like I kind of lost the plot in like I also want to hear from Jamada. He hasn't really talked, but
Sure.
I feel like I kind of lost the plot in explaining where it's like everyone kind of focuses like on what I said about positional coaches. It's less about like the difference that positional coaches make, and more that like an indication that hiring positional coaches, I think, is an indication of good leadership, and it's just like proper roster building and team building. The fact that like leadership within an organization took the time to get a rookie and got a positional coach for them to help them grow.
Yeah,
I
know
think
that.
Jamada, we're waiting for you to start.
Yeah, get in there. Yeah, you know
look,
what? No, we don't want to hear his ass. Mute his ass.
No, do you know what it is? It's because my take is kind of mean on your take, and
Fire away! Hit me, brother.
I've been trying to sit here and think of a political way to say it.
No, just say it.
I think it's
Fire
because
away.
your average fan analytically is a bit dopey, and then on top of that, frankly, how am I to expect a dopey analytical fan to then understand how a team is put together, why players are put together, the impact of a coach, what a coach is supposed to be doing? There are people working in these positions that I've come across that don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So how is a fan supposed to know what they're doing? And then very accurately attribute, like, you know, credit or blame on their performance. So that's why I mean, in that way, I agree with you, but I agree with you because frankly, they don't actually know what the metrics are for success or failure here, like a lot of the time. And I think it will be easier for people to look at players because naturally, if someone does something stupid on the Rift, you can very easily cling on to that and try and make some kind of rational point about it. But as far as coaching or staff, I think, you know, your average person, I mean, hell, even sometimes as broadcast talent, we struggle to look at certain members of a staff team unless they come out and very publicly say what specifically their roles are in a team. So yeah, I just think it's very, very, I agree with like maybe the general sentiment, but not like the maybe specifically how you got there, per se.
That's fair and based and true. I think like the reason that like I don't be like fans are dopey is because I am a fan, and so like I want to think better about myself.
Yeah.
But like I'll genuinely agree that like fans do not understand what makes a good team. Fans do not understand what makes a good competitive environment. I mean, you look at like the reactions to like that Spawn like coaching video, and everyone was like, "This guy is a horrible coach. He's being so mean to his player." And it's like, you guys know nothing about coaching.
Yeah, and then they
Like,
posted 2 more, and it's cool now, so we're fine.
Yeah, because like people push back, and it's like the people who were somewhat respected within the scene were like, "No, this is fine." And so suddenly all the fans were just like, "Oh, I guess they're right because these other people say he's okay."
Pacemaker,
Yeah,
thank
no,
you. Thank you for the call. Is there anything that you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, I have a kind of short list. I want to shout out Cubby. He's doing all his VOD reviews. They're a fantastic resource if someone's trying to learn about the game. Also, sick mustache. Shout out my boy Beans. He works over at Blue Water. He's the GOAT. Shout out Jamada. He's been an excellent addition to Hotline League recently, and I'm really grateful for him to staying up so late for it. And then finally, shout out Parth and Cito for running a scouting combine in the offseason, and Blue Water for streaming the whole thing. They're going to be sending 5 players to Korea after to boot camp once it's over.
Nice.
But funnily enough, I'm a part of that. And just yesterday, I was listening to Draxler give like a bot lane seminar. So this was kind of funny that you called in, specifically referenced him.
Oh, that's perfect.
Topical.
Thanks so much, Pacemaker, and we'll catch you next time.
What's funny about all of this is the coaching staff of the Split Award, that's the one that's always in contention because everybody hates it. Yeah. Everybody hates it.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, it's so weird. Like, I mean, I thought that Nuke Duck, when he was on 100 Thieves, like drafted like shit, and now FlyQuest like are drafting like super well. Like, I didn't really get in on that take, but I feel like sometimes people give too much credit to staff and not enough to players. Yep. Like I thought Spawn got way too much credit for TL and Spring, and Spawn would probably agree. I think Spawn's a great coach, right? Like I was able to like watch him work. Like just my spot as a caster when he was in TLC, I got access to scrims. Then also I got to coach with him as an extra body when he had academy tryouts. So I've seen a lot of these guys work. It's just so hard to know what they do, and I don't know. Like I feel like Demonte got a lot of flowers for going back-to-back top 8. Like I don't really know what that guy does outside of like letting Masu sniff oranges, you know? Like it's just like whatever they release to the public.
Do you say
and I know he's competent, but like it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't he, is it a sniffing thing? I thought he eats them.
Oh no, he sniffs that shit.
It's a sniffing thing. Yeah.
Oh wow. I'm out of the loop on this. I'm so sorry.
There were some threads that Demonte had. It was kind of cool.
So I'm falling off.
The TLDR of it is the scent releases like some kind of relaxation like thing in your head, which basically makes you calm down.
Oh,
and he's done it as a kid too, so it kind of grounds him.
I need to do this. Yeah. Where was this content?
Demonte's Twitter.
Oh,
or it was like in response to something. Like a photographer noticed, they're like, "Why is Masu sniffing oranges?"
Okay. Yeah. Also, I follow Demonte on Twitter, so I don't know how I missed it.
Yeah, back-to-back top 8s. I mean, results-based analysis says he's the GOAT for that.
Yeah. All right. We all need to start sniffing oranges. But guess what, folks? It's time. It's time to talk about something that's not oranges, something that you can eat. It's time for the Pagoda snack break here on Hotline League, brought to you by Pagoda.
Okay, you're eating it instead of sniffing it. Fine.
My paper towel got stuck a little bit on the Pagoda. I didn't unwrap it fast enough.
That's so crunchy. It's really good.
Eat the paper towel.
Hotline League is brought to you by Pagoda Snacks. From crispy egg rolls to crunchy cream cheese wontons and savory crab rangoons, Pagoda Snacks is ready to crush your cravings. Shop for them in the freezer section at your local grocery store or get them delivered with Instacart. Pit the egg rolls in because it's time for the Pagoda snack break. Pagoda chicken egg rolls, which are what I'm eating right now, have a crunchy wrapper, are made with white meat chicken, and are air fryer ready. Super crispy. Absolutely love it. It's been great to have these over the course of Worlds. I've really enjoyed them. I saw that they had a whole thing up at LCS Finals. So I really appreciate them coming in and sponsoring the show. Which one are you eating tonight, Cubby?
Chicken as always. It's my favorite.
It is really good.
I tried the pork. I like this one better.
One of the things that I've seen and really enjoyed are that people have been showing up in my Discord or tweeting at me, letting me know that they're picking up Pagoda snacks, eating the egg rolls during Worlds, they're shouting them out on Hotline League, etc. And it was kind of cool because today I sent over an email that had a bunch of screenshots from my Discord, as well as some links to tweets and some of the clips from the show where people were shouting at Pagoda. So thank you to everybody who's doing that. You can check out Pagoda Snacks by doing !Pagoda on either channel if you're watching live, but you can also use the link which is in the description of YouTube or the podcast if you would like to check them out over on Instacart. They have a whole page for them. But again, you can also find them in the freezer section of your local grocery store. So thank you so much, Pagoda, for sponsoring the show and for providing us with the Pagoda snack break. All right, Cubby, while you finish that bite, you want to go get the next caller in the waiting room?
Yep, we're working on it.
All right. We're working on it. Whereas, what other crazy shit are you trying to say during the show while I finish this egg roll? Oh, you've muted yourself.
Oh, nice, man.
Jesus. All right, because I wanted to hold myself back. I was professional. That's why I held myself back. I was trying to make like an eating motion, and then I realized it could look like something different. So I didn't want to do that during the sponsor segment.
You're on one tonight. I don't know what's happening.
I appreciate it, Rez.
I'm enjoying
keeping me on my toes.
I'm enjoying the day.
Is this your first time calling into the show? Is it Ollie or I don't know if I've ever said your name before.
It's just Ali, but Ollie is also acceptable. You know, any pronunciation is fine.
Are you the incredible painter?
I'll go with the painter. I don't know.
Oh!
Yeah,
you can, you can decide the quality or
game.
Yeah, for those, I don't think you do them as much anymore, right? But I mean, or maybe you did one this year. Did you of the LCS stuff?
I did something different though. I did a little cartoony thing, just for fun. But I've been doing a lot of stuff here and there throughout the years.
Well, I'll link here. We'll put up the C9 Jojo one. And
that's so nice of you. Wow.
So that people can see your work. But where are you calling from?
Montreal, Canada.
Montreal. And what do you want to talk about on the
Well,
show?
first I want to mention that I'm actually Egyptian, which is in North Africa, which means
there we go.
I think you're for the first time in the show's history, you're outnumbered.
That's true.
So
what? How is this episode? I've done like 350.
You guys are the minorities now.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Been...
Salam Habibi.
Yo, wallah.
Yeah, salam alaikum.
So what I want to talk about is that I think this year can be a major turning point in North American League of Legends, but it's only going to matter if orgs actually observe the correct lessons from it. So to preface this, I want to talk a bit about the past. A lot of people are coining yesterday's series already as NA's Misfits moment, but I'd argue that we already had our Misfits moment like 8 years ago, and we just didn't recognize what was happening at the time. The significance of it got completely lost, and nobody did anything correctly afterwards. So a lot of people talk about C9 in 2018, right? With the 3-0 against Africa making it to the semifinals. But personally, I think the series they had a year before that, right after the Misfits series against WE, was way more important, was way more impressive. It was a 2-3 loss against a top, the Singe. It was a 3-2 loss against a top Chinese team, arguably one of the best performing teams at the whole tournament. They were the only team to take a game off Samsung in the bracket, and it was a big deal. But nobody paid any attention to it. Like nobody cared after. Everybody just maintained the course of just buying the biggest names they could. And then the next year, C9 went a step further. Africa was never really considered a favorite in that tournament.
By the way, Contracts is in the chat and said, "Oh no, I remember this one."
Yeah, that was. I mean, it was heartbreaking, right? But like, it was such a sick series. The Singed, the Aurelian Soul in Game 1 that Jensen played. Nobody remembers that. That was amazing. They threw like a 10K gold lead, then almost came back somehow, then lost again. It was a crazy series. But if that series happened today, everybody would be going nuts. But anyways, I'm getting on a tangent. So the next year, C9 made an even bigger miracle happen, right? Where they beat a Korean team 3-0 and they made it to the semifinals. And both of these things happened because C9 invested in their own talent pipeline, using talent from their own pipeline, and also by believing in their own identity. And it's obviously a super big cliche to say, oh, just, play your own game and sign rookies and make sure that they're good, But this is the way that we've achieved success in the past. We just didn't pay attention to it. We didn't do anything. We just went straight back to just a big paycheck for big name, just put them all together and hope it works out. But I don't think that's the way forward. And I really hope that teams see what FlyQuest did, what TL did, and what 100 Thieves did to a lesser extent and learn from it and try to replicate what they've done.
Yeah, a fat chance.
Yeah, that's the big problem is I'm worried they'll learn nothing.
Well,
like, I'm not optimistic.
Hold on. You know what's working in our favor is that we don't have franchising, and now we have no money. So sometimes they have to take the young player.
And ironically, a big help is the fact that we have less money to play with.
Dude, that is so funny.
To make dumb decisions.
Yeah, it's so ironic that teams can't they can't help themselves, and it's hilarious that now you take the money away from them and they're actually making better decisions. But like, I'm not convinced that they will follow through with that. Like, I feel like, I don't know. We'll see what happens this offseason, but I'm not convinced that they're going to be like, oh, you know what we should do? Because here's the fucking problem, guys. Like, the whole point that Ali is making here is that, like, they invested in their own tier 2 system, and North America has gutted its tier 2 system. Like, what we are running now is, as teams and as players, are people that came from the system that all these team owners said was broken. And they're like, oh, you just can't find good talent in it. And then they fucking run APA and they run Masu and they run all these people. And like, it's so aggravating because I'm like, okay, cool. So you guys said this didn't work. And then you ran all these players from it and have gotten like critical acclaim from other regions for some of these players. So much so that like Jojo even got picked up, you know? And what do we have now? We have like that whole system is just in tatters. So
it's gonna get worse too. Like the last announcement they put out, they said that the future of college teams and secondary LCS teams, like being in the new America's Tier 2 system, was in question. Like they're challenging even the fact that you can run teams in that league with the same name. Now I'm sure that some of these teams will like find partnerships, but I feel like the homes for players moving forward, like it is go continue your education and get a scholarship, or the best case scenario is land on a second team to an LCS team that has a history of promoting people, like what TL and FlyQuest have done. And that's not even going to be like potentially a possibility next year, depending on how that evolves, right? I'm just talking about the footnote on what they had for Tier 2. That's something that really concerns me.
I'm going to say this really quickly to all the callers, because whenever we talk about Tier 2 development stuff, people go, oh, they're talking about this too much. I'm so tired of it. Cubbies always bring up Tier 2, blah, blah, blah. And then these same people will be like, oh my God, Masu's so amazing. I love Masu. Like, how do we get more players like him? You know, and I'm just like, come on, people. Like, you
know how to get more players like him? You follow Cubby on Twitter. That's how you get more players like him.
I do my best to help, but I appreciate it. It's not just me.
The
but,
Glaze is crazy. Stop doing backflips.
Yeah,
that's a great guy. I appreciate that. You put a smile on my face.
This is how you get back on the show, right? Like,
all right, hold on. Let's not go that far.
You've given up the ruse.
Yeah.
First and last time.
I mean, yeah. The other thing I was going to bring up is the fact that when NACL was made not a requirement, which I thought was actually an okay, like the manner in which it was done was poor because it was too fast, but was an okay move because some of the teams just straight up didn't take it seriously. How many teams said we're going to do something or like watch us do something and then haven't? Like only EG, TL, and FlyQuest actually did something in the space with C9 and Energy partnering for $0 to support teams. And I know that C9 staff helped out with Blue Water. Like I know that NRG's staff like had ties with Supernova, but it literally is like I'm going to wrap up my job, and if I have extra time, I'm going to go help out. It's not something where like they're actually putting money or investing in players that, I mean, if you look at the history of how the last few teams that have actually been successful in this region, it has involved younger players and imports because you know what? You have to develop talent in the current ecosystem or else you're going to be paying way too much money for everything. So now that the teams have no choice, they're kind of scrambling to maybe do it, but they still aren't. I don't get where a lot of teams are at, and I think the bottom-up approach from both TL and FlyQuest was a big part of the reason they've been successful, not just this year, but in past years too. So, yeah.
I want to add on to that, actually?
Yeah.
Is that it's not just about money. It's not just like, oh, I'll get a great talent that I pay less for. There's legitimate benefits to running rookies that you don't get when you run a 5 veteran lineup. Like, rookies are like a cheat code for synergy. If you can just train someone to see something the way you do because they implicitly respect you, that's a big deal. The biggest thing that 5 veteran rosters face as an obstacle is that they all see things differently and they never connect, like C9 this year, right? So like, having rookies can just be a better idea for your team synergy. They bring out the best in veterans often. Like, this was the best split we ever saw from Impact, right? 2 rookies on the team. I mean, I guess Jan's not necessarily a rookie, but 2 young talents on the team brought out the best in him, right? Like, I just never want to see a team like Summer Dig ever again, is what I'm saying.
Here's the problem with right now, I'd say the current problem with the pipeline. Well, okay. The problem was, I think the most frustrated I ever was when I was in Golden Guardians Academy and I just saw the teams around me, and teams would say that they're investing in tier 2. This was when every team was forced. They just there were certain teams that had a coach that was working both LCS and Academy, and we already know about TSM. They just didn't have a coach for their tier 2 team. That just happened multiple times. No one ever actually cared about tier 2. It was just something that they had there ready, and they didn't really put any resources where I think that's where you need to put your most amount of resources, at least when it comes to positional or two-way coaching, to get them ready. Because the few things that stop the players from ever moving up is, yes, some of the veteran players, even though to the point that you had made, Ali, is bringing in a veteran, a rookie player is like a cheat code because they will listen to the veteran player. But also the veteran player a lot of the times will see the rookie as quote unquote a waste of a year, because throughout the year, a lot of the times you're going to have to catch that player up to speed individually, macro. When you lose games, and it's a lot of the times because of the silly green mistakes that the rookie is making, that can be frustrating. That can lead to a lot of frustrations. So just having a coaching staff, even though this year, as you could tell, there's diminishing staffs for teams. So it's you're getting less and less resources for those players. That's going to feel like shit. So I think, thankfully, the solution is already brought up right at the beginning, because there are no fucking high contracts, and people are basically already being paid next to minimum at times. Then bringing in a new player is quite easy. Where, funny enough, back in 2020 and 2021, when the contracts were fucking ballooning in tier 1, and the solution was to build up a tier 2 player so they can challenge those contracts, some teams just refused to do it. So now,
and then the ones that did, because the contracts were so astronomically big, they were behind buyout markets, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, all you need to know about what the state of tier 2 NA was, and this is a little bit of hindsight, but looking back, it's accurate. You had Tenacity, Poom, Yawn, and Copy on the third team 100 Thieves. No one else wanted to pick up those players. They were on the third team of 100 Thieves. You know who's on the third team of EG? Sturdy, Danny, Tomio. These guys were not even in Academy, and these were the orgs that actually went out and did something ambitious and got talent that can be molded. And a lot of those players ended up being really good. Copy was the only player to not play an LCS from the 100 Nexx roster, and that was a fucking crime. So, that shows you how ambitious NA was in terms of how they used some of their tier 2, spots. It was
I'm actually particularly disappointed in the Copy situation because, with C9 in mind, Blabber's best performances were with Niski, but it was never with perks, and he wasn't bad with perks, but they never connected to multiply each other's strengths, and same thing with Jojo, right? You would think that C9 would be able to witness that their best lineups were all mishmashes of rookies and veterans, but they still just never wanted to. They just never believed in Copy, I guess, and they just never believe in rookies anymore. It sucks.
So here's the small thing I want to sneak in here, and then I want to throw Jamada. The thing that is ironic to me about all this stuff is that I remember a couple years ago when there was a big push for rookie NA talent after seeing Danny and Jojo. There were people that came out and they're like, oh, you guys just don't understand. You all think that there's a lot of other NA talent that's like Danny and Jojo, but actually there's not. Like it's just like whatever. And
I saw these takes this year.
dude, yeah,
After FlyQuest
These are the
lost,
exceptions,
Yes,
guys.
these
These
are
are
the
just, it keeps
exceptions.
happening every year, but it's the
Yeah.
exception.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then hilariously we get within a short time another we see a mid laner in AP8 this year who I think was incredibly dominant. Obviously things did not go well for TL at Worlds, but like incredibly dominant. And then we see an AD in Masu. So it's just so funny to me that like people want to perpetuate this idea that like, oh yeah, there's just no what NA talent. Oh, you guys see these guys and you think we get lucky. Yes, I understand that not every rookie is as good as these guys. Like that is not how talent development works, but it is aggravating to me that this is the case.
And sticking with the talent too, by the way.
Look at Yon, look at Busio. Like they need a year too, by the way.
Even on top of that, the players that did they performed well, but they weren't particularly set up to succeed. Like XU, I thought was great. I thought Insanity has done well. Like these players still they're playing well. They're playing good games. They're just like they're obviously like not on the top teams set up the same way Masu and Busio are. Like everybody would do better with Inspired as their jungler, I find.
And then you see people like Artemis the Kitten in Twitch chat who comes out and goes, "What about Energy Palafox? What about him?" Yeah, that guy has been around for a bit. He had 2 really great years, and then he had a bad year. He had a bad year this year, and like I think there's a good chance. Like we've seen repeated times where people end up on a team that didn't seem to work. Like Energy seemed very dysfunctional. I don't know what was going on over there. Whatever, the org decided to get out at the end of it. So like I don't think that I'm ready to abandon a player after 1 year if they've had good years in the past. Jamada.
Yes.
Niski went on a rant about EU and their stuff. It's interesting that we've had these conversations for a while, and I'm seeing more of these conversations spark up right now over in Europe, especially after this Worlds. I don't know, is all this stuff sound like kind of funny to listen to on your end because it's similar to what conversations happening in LEC?
I mean, in some ways, I guess I'm actually not super familiar with what Niski's been saying. I've been a little bit tapped out of social media the last 2 days or so. I just know that he was not particularly happy with LEC, or with SK smile. But yeah, I mean, frankly, I think that to me, it just seems like the North American mindset is just stuck and has been stuck for a little while on like the get rich quick or die trying kind of mentality of like we've seen for years. Import some 4th to 7th place LCK player, bring them in, we get results, yay. We don't get results, sell them and like just try again. I think very simply that the ERL system here in Europe is just simply proof that tier 2 works, right? Obviously we also the LEC teams, I think it was at the start of 2023, they didn't make it a compulsory thing to have an academy anymore. Some teams still do, but we still pull from these ERLs constantly for new talent. And yeah, I don't really have much to say. I kind of agree with the take. It's just whether or not the small percentage. I am saying small now because again, the LCS technically the North American teams have lost teams. That there's just less fraudulent GMs that will actually do their job, right? Make sure their scouts are doing their job, and if they have scouts, and actually look to pick up some younger talent who are playing domestically and who show promise, and actually give them time and develop them, and put them in rosters that seem to make sense, right? It's not even necessarily about putting them with veteran players per se, but putting them with, even if the player only has a year under their belt in the LCS, if you can already tell that a 1 year player in the LCS has IGL qualities, you can put him with a rookie and it will be fine.
Yeah,
they don't even have to be tenured. It's actually more of a personality thing as opposed to it being like experience, in my opinion. So yeah, I agree. I think this is a good opportunity again, much like the examples you brought up from 2017 or 18. And obviously 2022 from EG. Hopefully more teams in NA follow suit.
I will say,
look at Irrelevant. Irrelevant's a great example in SK, right? Like or like revenge. Do I think did IMT Kenvi work out? No. Was IMT Kenvi what these orgs should be doing? Absolutely. Like those
Yeah,
are
I
the players that you want to roll the dice on, right? And looking at this offseason, where's Yuji? Like we've had all the 3 of our most valuable prospects that have made it to LCS, have won LCS, and have taken top 8 at Worlds in back-to-back years. All 3 of them that we've sent to LCS. Yuji is the only guy that's won back-to-back, is actually a really well-rounded jungler, and is no longer an import. His name has not been brought up once this offseason. Like, if I'm Dignitas and I'm not looking at this player, what the fuck are you doing? Like, who are we going to bring in on minimums and, like, you know, that are just going to sit there and fill the role and, like, not actually have ambition to try and further develop players, right? Like, who are you going to take that's just going to sit there and be serviceable rather than actually rolling the dice and take a risk? I'm amazed that, like, we don't hear more names from my league like actually get mentioned and moving up, especially this offseason. I know that things have narrowed a little bit, but like I do think that moving forward, like we should see more teams roll the dice the way that LEC does. Like I'm excited for Scuman to go to G2. I've heard a lot about that guy, and I've seen a wee bit of tape, and he's really good. Like there should be more players that get opportunities like this, and it just doesn't happen here, and I don't know why.
You know what's so funny, Kebby? So I pulled up this Niski thing. I'll share it in the Twitch chat and YouTube chat as well. But
Yeah, I read
like
I read it too.
it's funny because his take is kind of the opposite, and that he says there are too many rookies in the LEC and not enough veterans, and that I think the conversation I've seen is that people think that there's too much like. People are spending too much time trying to find like the next caps, and when it doesn't work out, they just like spin the wheel again. So it is kind of funny to see the opposite conversation taking place over there.
Well, they have like I don't know about you, Jamada, but I feel like LEC has the literal opposite problem because for me, I don't know what the circumstances are within G2, but when they moved away from Yankos, I was like, that's fucking crazy. But I can at least respect the idea of, you see something in a kid and you want to be able to build that up. In like, okay, I'm along for the ride. Okay, you took all this time to build up Yike, and now you're moving on to Skumon. I have never seen a Skumon game, but it kind of feels like you are now going back to the ground up on a player, and you don't know how long
they hit reset.
caps.
Yeah. No, they hit reset on that project. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm still like I kind of alluded to. I think yes, you can like it's important to have someone wise and have experience, right? I don't think that necessarily has to come through the shape of a teammate, of a player teammate. Frankly, I think as long as a roster on a personality level meshes, I think that is far more important than necessarily having a player veteran there. Don't get me wrong, player veterans are obviously going to be invaluable in terms of their experience, and maybe if they're kind of an I don't know what to dub it other than like kind of an ex-legend. They've done the world stance, they've done MSI, they've gone to all these big stages. Obviously that's very useful, but to me, if you were like, hey, would you want a roster with 4 rookies and a veteran, and their personalities all match perfectly, and all of their roles inside of a team match pretty much 1-to-1, and there shouldn't really be like issues in terms of interpersonal issues? Or you give me a roster of 3 to 4 veterans and 2 rookies, but there's going to be constant growth pains and constant headbutts and clashes because their personalities don't really go well together, and they're struggling to find a clear identity because frankly there is no IGL on that lineup. I'll ask for the first roster every single day of the week. So I think people will probably get very stuck on the idea of needing a veteran to be there. A veteran is useful, but veterans can come also in the form of staff. But again, I don't think they're a complete and utter necessity. I think the only time where you'll genuinely see it kind of be useful is in very, very high pressure stakes scenarios, in like elimination matches, things like that. Because that's where I think actually experience is useful to pass on to younger players in a moment like that, if you're a teammate. Otherwise, I don't think it's like a complete necessity. That's just at least how I view it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I will say a small thing, because I know the topic is mostly centered around building up players that you have in NACL, or just in Tier 2. But I'm a lot more lenient in the sense of like I'm okay with an import that's brought in that is committed to the team or committed to the region, and the organization is committed to that player. Like when you see moments like that, technically it was Jensen. Jensen's first like major region was in North America, if I remember correctly. There was also I also like the idea of Berserker, and I hope that he still finds a team in North America or is still interested in that team. But whenever I see like an organization, and I'll bully Dignitas a little bit, just slightly, but like go from Blue to Dove to this guy to that guy, every fucking split there's a new person. I'm like, who are you investing in, and what is like you are trying to grow, but it seems like you're permanently playing Moneyball. You're playing Moneyball, and you're not like it doesn't make any sense. So that's the frustration to me is when you go every split to find a new player. And then you're like, oh, that didn't work. Well, fucking put more time into it. If you're going to commit to that player, at least show us that you have confidence in that person.
The reset every year is brutal, you know?
Yes. Even though, here's great examples. Like, a lot of the times, there would be people who would fight against a player. Like, right now, the conversation's happening with Umpty. Or the conversation is happening with, like, Fake God. Or the conversation was happening with Dokla. In my mind, I'm like, I'm happy the organization is committing longer to a full year to this player to showcase that they have confidence in this player and they know what the player can show. I love that shit because at least is you see something that I don't, or you see something that I do, and you're giving me that confidence. Perfect. But if you fucking sack a player after a split again and again, that's how you lose fans. That alone is how you lose fans.
All right, we've talked this topic into the dirt, so I do.
That's good. I got pissed off. I literally pissed myself off. I don't know how.
Can I follow up one thing though? On
one last thing.
Yeah, it was just that like I also agree with him that if you're gonna importing like someone who is obviously committed and like outwardly dedicated to coming here and staying is a big deal, which often happens if you import a rookie. Like that's a good importing a rookie is a good way to get them embedded in North America and get them to stick around. But you also do run into a different problem when it's not from the North American talent pipeline of you get the Berserker situation where every year you're playing, is Berserker going back to Korea again and again? And then you're just like, oh man, like this does not happen with a player like Jan, where you're like, is Jan going away? No, probably not. He's probably going to stay in NA. I mean, maybe not the best time to bring that up since Jojo's leaving, but like for the most part, when you import very high tier Korean talent, even if it's a rookie, like I don't know that Thanatos will stay here forever, right? But I do have a feeling that APA will probably stick around. So that's another benefit of investing in local talent pipelines rather than looking to third party talent pipelines.
Thing about that where they call it boomeranging and stuff. Okay.
Well, Berserker's not necessarily a boomerang though because he's stuck around here.
No, here's the thing, and this is I don't know why I'm saying this. I don't know why I'm saying this because I know a bunch of people are going to get angry with me because I talked about
in
this
effect
with
he still is
another
in the
player.
End,
but like,
just mute him, mute Travis.
Look, I appreciate like let's say Berserker leaves. I appreciate Berserker staying for a longer period of time, but I still think that is an example of like of a situation where people became Berserker fans over many years. And like we fell in love with this player. I want him to stay in the league, and the league, the teams, the fans have invested a bunch of equity, like brand equity and fan equity, into this player. And when that leaves the league, that is a huge thing. Same thing, by the way, with what's happening with Jojo. But Jojo is the first time in 11 years, 12 years that this has happened. So I'm not. I think that it's a lot more reasonable to say that like this is an issue.
The risk runs higher for sure. That with
3 years is basically a player's career. All right, I'm just putting that out there. It's the average player career, so I'm not gonna. You can't use that as a boomerang.
Wait, sorry. How long is the average player career?
Like I'm just putting it out there that 3 years is to me a rise and fall of like an average player. That is, you can't call 3 years a boomerang.
It's not like he's retiring right now.
I know,
he could have kept playing in North America.
We also don't know that he's leaving. To be fair,
by the way, I don't. When I say boomerang, I don't say this as a fault on the player. I think some people think that when I do this, I'm like if Berserker has the chance to go do some crazy cool shit in LCK, I would encourage him to go do that. I think that's awesome. I really like this player and I want to see him succeed and do awesome things. So like, I think some people take it personally where they're like, I'm a fan of Berserker and Travis is slamming him. I think instead I take it as this is a systemic issue that the league has where we build stars and we tell people to care about Takui or Berserker or any of these players that come over here. I mean, maybe Umpty if he ends up leaving. And then we tell them, never mind. Now you need to care about these other new players that come over. And whatever. I'm sure I'll talk about this on another episode. People are tired of hearing me talk about it.
It really makes you appreciate people like Core JJ, Impact, who stick around, who stay, who are like, no, I am LCS.
And I appreciate the people who
Jensen too.
I appreciate the GMs who encourage players to like stick around and figure out ways to get them to stay in the league after. Like if you brought a player over who you think you believe in, like make sure that they're here for more than a short time, So I don't know. All right. Hey, thanks for the call, Ali. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
I want to shout out you, Travis. I want to shout out you because I don't, and I'm not here just to glaze, but I don't think that I would have made nearly as many esports paintings if you hadn't been retweeting me from the beginning. So that helped me get a lot of eyeballs, and then it actually led me to do a bit of work with some esports org, which was really, really cool. So thank you.
Yeah. Hey, your work has always been really cool, and I've always been envious of the Eastern regions where I think that they have a lot of fans who spend a lot of time like developing, just showcasing their fandom in really cool ways. And certainly we have some of that in the West, but not nearly as much. And I think that you are one of the prime examples of a fan who is like, hey, I'm going to invest into this space, and your art has always been phenomenal. So that's been a big thing.
Just want to do something cool, just do something fun.
Hey, right there with you. Hey, thanks so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Yep. Okay, cool.
That brother could not be stopped, man. He was on a glazing combination. He was one person after the other.
I think there's so much negativity in the space right now that it's not like I like. Obviously, it's nice that he shouted me out, but even in a world like the caller before Ali, like shouted out all of you guys, didn't shout me. I still think it's nice that people are spreading positivity.
True.
Sometimes it is. I read a lot of negative comments, so it's nice to sometimes have somebody say something nice. Okay, let's get into the next call. Off Cody goes.
Do it.
Thank you.
Shout out to PP Doc in the chat. Still the greatest name with amazing context.
Yeah, he's a doctor. Power Surge, thank you for the membership over on YouTube. Thank you to Fool on a Hill for the 16 months, Lit Drummer Boy for 41, Balloon Horses for the Prime, T-Fish 88, George Zulu, Benjamin for the 50 months, Blicky Drip, Chattius for 24, Rob Guitarist, YYC, Hustbust, and some more. But we got our next caller here. We'll shout out some more in a bit. Nexx is here. Nexx, where are you calling from?
Hey, guys. I'm calling from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cincinnati, Ohio. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, I'm actually appreciate you grabbing my take, Cubby. I didn't think this was going to be interesting enough to get on the show. So I've been a longtime fan since season 1, watching competitive, and now I'm raising fans of my own. So I know a while back, Travis, you talked about longevity in the league and having generational fandom. And my oldest son, his name's Ethan, he's 7, is a huge example of that. He's a massive FlyQuest fan. He actually sobbed his eyes out on Sunday after that loss, so it was pretty brutal. But I wanted to formulate this into a take. I really just wanted to share a bit about him and some of the good times we've had getting him into league since honestly about 4 years old. But my take is that Riot should feature young fans in content pieces as a way to encourage generational fandom. So if you watch a baseball game, you see the camera on the crowd, you see families and kids and things like that. And I think there's a good opportunity to, interest older fans like myself. And, I'm 36, been watching League for like 13 years, and I know there's more of us out there and probably getting their kids involved. And when you talk about positivity in the league, I don't think there's a better source than kids, honestly.
And I wouldn't say that 36 is an older fan. I think that they are an average age fan.
It's
you
definitely
know?
an
Like,
old as hell fan.
No, I don't think that's accurate. I think they are in their prime, really. When you think about age levels these days.
I don't
Cubby,
know about that.
I think this is more in line with your world, so I'm curious what you have to add here.
As old
No,
as
I mean,
Optimus Prime.
I will say it is like I've going to these events. I mean, it is difficult to find younger fans, but they do exist. At LCS finals, like I was sitting in front of God, had to have been like an 8 to 12-year-old girl who was a big FlyQuest fan, and her we ended up talking with them. Her dad worked the venue, and so he was a league fan, got free tickets, and then brought his daughter because he was a SoFi employee.
Dad.
Yeah, so that was really cool to see a fan have an experience, and I'm with that. I mean, my thing that I always add on is like youth sports. I remember, when I was 7, it would have been during the 2003 Cubs World Series run where they didn't make the World Series, and the Steve Bartman thing happened, like a new curse came in, like the city of Chicago or whatever. I bawled my eyes out when they lost to the Marlins and ended up going on to win. And I was playing baseball at the time. I could watch baseball. I loved the sport. I did as a kid. So I think it's really difficult to find ways to engage with kids that are that young with League. But the fact that you've been able, you have a kid who's a fan of it's really cool. And I still think that, especially I've always pushed for high schools, especially in middle schools, creating any sort of youth sports program. Because if you are involved, you will become a fan afterwards. That's how the traditional sports works. So I don't know. Really cool though that you have someone that you're able to share this with, and just happens to be family. So that's really this is a neat take. So it was fun to grab.
Yeah, I hope there's scholastic opportunities. That's the thing, is I just hope it stays healthy and lasts a long time. And I've not been more optimistic than I have been after this year with FlyQuest. So,
how did your son become a FlyQuest fan?
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing, because usually he roots for whoever's winning, and the moment the game swings, he changes teams real quick. So Whippo caught his eye somehow. He's a huge Whippo fan, so he loves when he picks for Nectin, he gets pumped. So I honestly don't know what caught him with FlyQuest, because it was regular season this year where those are the games he wanted to watch, and if they're on, that's what he'd asked to watch. So
how much
about him.
What's happening does he understand, or are you explaining a lot of it to him?
Well, that's what's crazy about it. He beat Astro's Playroom, if anyone knows what that is, on PlayStation when he was 4 years old. So for some reason, he's just really talented with games.
Kids scare me. He's a
generational gamer.
A cousin of mine was just building the craziest thing on Minecraft, and I was like, "What the hell? You're 5 years old or something." I never did anything this creative in my life. So unfortunate.
Yeah, it's incredible to watch, and what he understands, and he likes shoutcasting the games. So I've got some video of him, shoutcasting the games.
Let's get him a contract.
Yeah. Well, content pieces. I'd love, if he did something with Captain Flowers, or any kid who was that interested and kind of knew what they were saying, or your trivia pieces, Travis. If you had kids on there and asked them questions about the game, and I'm sure you'd get some crazy answers. So I think that could be something to be interesting.
Yeah,
there are a couple teams that I've seen that have youth reporters. There was a great I don't know if you saw this, Raz, but it was Giannis talking with the Milwaukee Bucks youth reporter for an interview. It was hilarious. They had like a 10-year-old.
Was it recent?
Yeah, so it was recent. It was in preseason. So
okay, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean there is some precedent for stuff like that. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, I think.
I never thought I'd.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying I've not really seen kids involved in the scene at all, and I understand I wouldn't want to reading chat or anything like that, but as far as the broadcast and stuff like that, it's super fun. So
yeah,
I
really enjoys it.
13, maybe you can start co-streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wait till he was 7 to play. So he's played the tutorial and he's done one co-op per spots game at this point, but he has to play all the time. I actually bought a laptop so we could play together.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
I want to shout out my family real quick. So my wife, Callie, both my sons, Ethan and Brett, for not only putting up with League, but becoming interested in it along with me. My wife's even suffered through a couple games with us, so that's been good. But definitely want to shout out FlyQuest too. It's been super fun to watch them. We're really proud, and as upset as we were when they lost, we know what a great job they did, and that was really, really cool. And quick shout out to you too, Travis. I was at the 2019 Spring Finals, the Team Liquid after party that you put on in that live Hotline league. So trips like that have been really a cool part of my life. So appreciate all the stuff you guys do.
Yeah, thank you so much for the call. Really, really nice. It's always nice to get a more of a heartwarming call whenever we're salty and all these other ones. So thanks so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Yep, good deal. Thanks.
All right, time for a quick break to talk about Prize Picks, sponsor of the show. We're doing a big giveaway right now with Prize Picks. If you do ! giveaway in either chat, you'll get a link to enter to win one of 100 lineups that they're giving away. And these lineups give you a chance to win up to $1,000. We're going to be doing the giveaway. We're going to be distributing all 100 of them before World Finals. So this ends next week, and you get a chance to get one of these. Again, with 100 chances to like we're giving away 100 of these things. There's a pretty good chance that you enter and you win one of these things. And when you do, you get a chance to get one of these free lineups. And I figure, hey, maybe you might want to play it for the finals. Might be kind of fun to say, Faker versus whoever, who's going to get more kills, who's going to get more assists. It's a really cool thing that they're doing. So please go hit up that sign up. It's really helpful too whenever we get a bunch of people who enter a giveaway. And there's a bunch of different things that you can do to enter the giveaway, including stuff that you're probably already doing, like following the following the Twitch channel or visiting the YouTube channel, all this stuff. So it's a really easy thing to enter. It is a way to support the channel. And so I do really appreciate everyone who does that. Other than that, please go check out Prize Picks. If you do, you can sign up with my link. You can use code Travis when you sign up. You get a really cool bonus when you make your first play. And after this show, if you're watching live, stick around because we're going to be doing the 7th episode of a prediction show that we've been doing with myself, Cubby, Croissant from NRG, who was the GM over there for last year and then coach before then. And then also we have Elias, who is one of the writers and players, but also has been writing for the LCS for many years up until the beginning of this one and is very familiar with Prize Picks. So it's been really fun to do that show with them. I've really enjoyed doing this show, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. So thank you so much to Prize Picks for sponsoring the show. Please catch that prediction show. It'll be up on VOD on YouTube too if you want to check that out there.
Yeah, also, we have the discussion going in the Discord, and I shared some lineups from this past weekend involving NFL and LOL, and I hit 4 out of 8, which is pretty good because you have to have 2 or more things hit. Your payouts are always more than 2x unless you go flex play. So
yeah,
you can join the conversation there too. Not bad.
Congratulations, Cubby, on the money.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We're going to go grab another caller now. Huge thank you to Raging Pianist, by the way. I hope he dropped 20 community subs right at the start of that call, and so I didn't get a chance to big reaction. But thank you, Raging Pianist, longtime supporter of the channel with a really creative name. PP Doc gifted a sub to Cubby's mom. I'm sure she'll appreciate that. The Eat Dirt, thank you for the 12 months, full year. EMBW, I hope you're doing well and you're back from your travels. Everything's been fun. Thank you for the 19 months. Director Donut, thank you for the 38 months. All right, we got rawnblade here. Rawnblade, where are you calling from?
Sydney, Australia.
Sydney, Australia. What do you want to talk about on the show?
What time is it?
It's actually like in the middle of the workday, so
Yeah.
it's
like
for
2
my
p.m.
boss.
Yeah, it's really like 2 p.m. out there.
Jamada's the one
2:30.
that's in the middle of the night. So
Yep.
Yeah.
So my take is that Travis has Stockholm syndrome for American food, but no, actually my take is that this FlyQuest roster is probably the first time in a long time I can remember where the story that an org is telling about their roster has actually turned out to be more than PR and kind of come to pass in how they've played the game. So if you go back to, I checked it today, I was worried it was just my memory, but Papa Smithy put out a tweet at the start of the year where he said he wanted the defining quality of their roster that they built this year was about creativity, game knowledge, a deep understanding of the meta and ability to play within it. And so, it's kind of amazing to see that wasn't just, I think there were times early in the year where I was like, oh, well, that hasn't really turned out. They're, playing a lot of standard stuff. They got maybe, I don't know, but it's really come to pass, I think, throughout the year that they've shown a willingness to pick creatively, to take on strategies that are not necessarily the standard. And obviously, in the past 2 weeks, have really flexed that in a big way. And so I think it's really it's a pretty cool thing that they've been able to do. And shout out to Papa Smithy for really kind of delivering on what, putting his money where his mouth is.
Jamada, you're an LCS hater. Why is this take wrong? Why are FlyQuest frauds?
Get his ass. Get that fraud.
No, actually, FlyQuest is like the one of two orgs that I frankly like and respect. Unfortunately, I would love to play Heya here, but I actually can't. This is what he's
Two
saying.
orgs
is
in the entirety
true.
of the LoL esports ecosystem that you like and
Oh
respect?
yes, I'm Jamada, and I see
From
two
NA
European players and a European coaching staff, and I'm forced to love this team. That was my impression of you.
That was oddly racist in a different way I wasn't expecting, Raz.
I don't.
Anyway,
Oh, hell no.
Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, no, frankly, I agree. I don't really have much to take away. I've loved what FlyQuest have done, especially from an outsider's perspective as well. Again, out of all of the major regions, NA is the one that I probably, digest the least, because I'm on LEC time zone and then LPL, and then that also means I kind of don't get much LCK because I'm investing my time mostly in LPL. But yeah, every single time that I see something from Fly to do with personal story or background or the mission statement, right, of FlyQuest, everything's just kind of on the money, and they do on a org level at the very least for now. They are the good guys, and they very much do stand by their players, their story, and what they're building up. So I honestly I love it. FlyQuest is a great organization, and I'm glad that they found success in the failure of not quite toppling Gen G. I think that it again also just paints a very good potential picture for the future of League in NA, regardless of how the ecosystem actually ends up landing in 2025.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
it is
I think
fun to see that they've had this kind of redemption from the start of summer. Remember when everyone hated them? It's so easy. So many people feel like forget about that, but like they were the villains of the LCS.
They were.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Were they?
not
Wait, can I
during the
can I
summer,
be
buddy.
educated here, because
Yeah.
I
That's not-
actually didn't know this.
Okay.
People didn't like Inspired in like some of his interviews, where there was one in specific where like he did pretty much just flame Jensen like after the TL series.
It wasn't even that bad.
Sure.
It wasn't that bad, but it was direct.
Was this like and again, I'm sorry to say this, many of the people of the North American continent are soft crybaby children.
Yeah,
So
it's
was
easy
this
flame.
like a Inspired is Polish and was very blunt and direct?
In my
because
opinion,
he's
it
from
was,
Europe, and also
but-
specifically that is just his character as a person.
I would also say that based on what pros reveal in interviews, this definitely revealed a lot more than usual and was very direct. So
Right.
it was a bit European, but it also like for me, if I was a coach in that team, I would be like, all right, buddy, we can't be talking about all this to the public, So
Yeah.
there was a bit of that too.
It also wasn't
and
a
then,
good look because then they went to like MSI sucked and then kicked Jensen. So
And then
just,
even
like,
recently, like the Blippo streams, everyone
The
was talking about the
optics
Blippo
weren't
streams
great.
before Worlds.
Yeah.
So yes, this is why I said that Travis is thinking way too far back. This is a goddamn roller coaster, by the way. Basically, throughout the year, at any point, anytime you put a mic in front of Inspired or Blippo in general, like they're very confident people and they're very open people, and sometimes they'll say shit that flames other players. Like that'll just happen, or just their frame of thinking. Not even just the players. They'll just say their frame of thinking is flawed, and they'll just go out. Remember the whole Inspired calling energy frauds that started at the beginning of the year, of course, and that fueled a lot of our content. Not gonna lie, we used a lot of those tidbits to be able to
It ended up being
That's
very
true.
honest, unfortunately.
Yes, of course. But
Oh, boy.
basically, anytime you put a mic in front of them, they spoke bluntly.
Very
of course,
bluntly.
exactly. So after the finals in spring, obviously the whole Jensen thing. But Inspired did this with Jojo, and Jojo just didn't give a fuck during Evil Geniuses. But also he just knew that he was really, really good, and that there was security within that team. So it just, when it went from that to the next split, Jensen was replaced. That is where the flaming came into view. And also during MSI, where Jensen was not the reason why they got bumped out, then everyone started to really flame the individuals and the organization. So it's like it was a roller coaster of all of that. Then you go to Worlds, and Whip was obviously streaming regularly, doing his same shit, which is educational, high level stream, But then of course he's very emotional. He's talking to other players and just straight flaming. So you get shit like that. You do. But you take the good and the bad, and I love it when a player is open, honest, says whatever is coming right from the chest, and sometimes they have to learn from it too if they say the wrong shit. But it's good.
It was real.
Enjoyable. Yeah.
It was always real. And I gotta add too, like FlyQuest talking the shit they did made the TL press conference when they won in spring all that much better.
Yeah.
When TL won in spring and Jan goes, I don't know why they talk so much shit. Like that hit so much harder because they actually talk shit. So it was like, I thought it was really fun this year. And I know more than the average fan. I always appreciated Inspired speaking his mind and knowing a lot of the people in that team, even if it was more, like they had the culture where you can say those things. And to be fair, like with going back to the caller's point, that's something that FlyQuest, and not just Papa Smithy, I want to credit like the whole staff. They echo that as a staff. They're like, hey, we speak honestly here and like it's okay. And I mean, if things go tits up and the results are better, like or worse, not as good as they were, then like maybe we'd be talking differently. But they got the results they did, and so I feel like their approach for their team is warranted, which leans into a lot of why I like this take, because FlyQuest was them. I really feel like that's the one thing that I can say about this team is that they were honestly, truthfully them. And that is, I think, really, it helped with their success in the end. The fact that they were authentically who they were. And if there's anything to take away from this team, it's that. Sometimes you just got to let the guys be themselves.
I just want to tag on to that as well, because I remember last year, not to go too far away from the take, but I promise it's technically it's connected. Mm-hmm. I remember when everyone was really heavily flaming APA for just constantly yapping, and as a competitive bullshitter myself, I found it ridiculous because I don't actually recall him saying anything that was objectively over the line. He was just trying to rile people up, and it was incredible. And you know what it did? It started narratives and storylines. And frankly, if you have a competent staff or management behind players like that, they then get to build better narratives, not only for the player, but for their own organization as well. So, yeah, I think more players also need to, kind of buck up and be a little bit more happy to speak their mind and get what they have off their chest if they feel like they have something to get off their chest. Not every player is going to be like that, and that's fine. If no one's saying, go shit talk the person that you just beat constantly or that you think you're going to beat. But, I think, some confidence will go a long way with helping build narrative on multiple fronts.
Yeah. It's so funny too, because like the narratives of like the players and the other teams hating FlyQuest because they were shit talking, and it made those matchups so much better. It really did.
It did.
To get back. Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to do two things, and the second thing we'll get back to the main topic because I recognize it was trailing away a little bit. I wanted to give credit to both Inspired and Buppo because they're two people that are more than fucking willing to do content. So like literally, this was during Swiss stage. Buppo loses, or at least like FlyQuest loses. Obviously, Buppo, I forget which game it was, but he had a bad game, and he's more than willing to get on the desk and review literally like that game right after losing. I don't remember a player that's ever done that from our side. Like that is actively talking about his own performance, why the team lost, the pathway forward, stuff like that. And he was emotional about it. And that's great shit. Same as Inspired. Inspired would hang around in studio throughout the entire day because he would be down a cast. And so he's like doing basically everything A to Z for like an 8-hour broadcast. That's crazy stuff. To the point though, yes, I think picking up two of those players, and both of them are also just well known before being picked up as creatively minded players in draft. Like Inspired has always wanted to like throw in a Kha'Zix. He did it when he was on Evil Geniuses when it was out of meta, or the Fiddlesticks and stuff like that. He's always been somebody that's pushing for meta picks. And Buppo's entire champion pool when he was on Fnatic, onwards, has been creatively minded. The Urgot, the Garen when it was, Garen Yumi, if you want to talk about that meta. That dastardly meta. Set, shit like that. Wukong top, Olaf. Like, he just has a creative champion pool, and he's more than willing to buy in with whatever strategy FlyQuest wanted. And the FlyQuest strategy was, we are not scrimming Korean and LPL teams, and we will be primarily, like, cooking something up, because we think the team that we're facing is just better than us. Which not a lot of people will ever admit to so wholly that they're willing to find something really creative within the draft and just play their hearts out. So, yeah, respect to the management for picking up those players and then building around it with really strong upcoming players in bot lane and mid.
I mean,
honestly.
we saw this from both Team Liquid and FlyQuest, where like they showed up at Worlds and they just like brought out unconventional picks that were really exciting to watch. I mean, FlyQuest especially, you know.
I mean, we could go into talking about whether or not some of those picks or styles were to play for team strengths or team deficiencies, because I think that part of the reason is for sure both. But regardless, the fact that these teams had an identity is something that fans have asked for a long time. Not to just be a copycat league, because, I mean, in a lot of these tournaments too, and I will credit lane swaps. I think lane swaps helped open things up for a lot of these teams, because if you are just going to straight up lane, I think that's where the ladder has more of an impact on these regions as a whole, rather than lane swaps, where having more experienced players like Blippo, like Inspired, like Impact, like Core JJ did help these teams, I think, navigate that better, because a lot of the new players just haven't played in the meta like that, right? That's definitely an advantage. But we talk so much about experience gap, experience advantage. Like, how can you know how to play Urgot better than Blippo, or like Nunu better than Inspired, if these guys have been, you know, running it in solo queue, on secret accounts, or in scrims, which we know each have done, than your opponent, right? Like, not everyone's going to play these champs to the degree that these players play these champs. And I don't want to just credit the old guys too. Masu was a really creative player. This guy was busting out Rylai's AP Kog'Maw to counter Xayah in challengers, and was executing it really well. He's a good mage player in Ziggs. Busio was a mid lane role swap. His hands are really good. Like, we know this from the LCS stage. So it's not just them. It's like everyone bought into the same identity. And props to the coaches too. I mean, I've said I thought Nukeduck drafted like crap at 100 Thieves. Everyone hated Mythi's drafting on C9. Like, this is a team that as a whole came together to play this style. And we can all agree that their drafts they had in this tournament, I feel like, were really good. And I think the majority agrees. So, yeah, it's a team-wide identity, and I think that each team that we sent that did well, they did have a lot of positives for, again, just being authentically themselves. They had an identity. They were not afraid of it. They weren't ashamed of it. They went and played their identity, and it was an advantage in the end. It's better than what we've done in the past. So props to the teams.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much, rawnblade, for the call. Anything that you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, I think I also just want to remember. I think everyone's going to remember the Gen G series. It was obviously the most hype, but it's also worth remembering that they were like a 5-minute passage of play away from 2-0ing HLE as well. Like, I think, FlyQuest performance at this World is one of the strongest we've seen from an NA team in like a really long time. So it's super cool. And I think we should also shout out TL, who had a great year, and hopefully like can continue to build, and these two teams will continue to build each other up, and maybe we'll have a bit of that G2 Fnatic magic that really drove those top two teams in the EU LCS to the heights that they achieved in the past. But yeah, my only other shout out is to someone who I think is an underrated hero of this year, the partnerships manager at Kia, who, had this great master plan at the start of the year. They're going to sponsor the LCS. They're going to sponsor some teams. They pick up NRG, the new boys, the NA boys that people love, their commitment to the LCS unquestioned, the new generation, the new champs, NRG. What a great League of Legends teams to sponsor. But, we'll hedge our bets just in case. We'll also sponsor the tried and true, steady as she goes, most finals attended org, who just picked up the most hype new NA talent, an MVP roster, going to win everything, Cloud9. And, shout out to the person in that job who really, in January, February, was probably feeling like the king of the world, only to have it all fall down around them.
They sponsored me for summer. Okay, so like
exactly, they had to go. They had to like cut their losses and find some extra people to to pull them in. So anyway, that was their biggest W for the year. Travis was sponsoring you. So shout out to that crew.
I'm gonna send this to them.
What?
I just when I realized that they had sponsored Cloud9 and NRG, it's so sad. They just must have thought they were onto the best possible outcome.
Well, they sponsored the LCS, and guess what? LCS had the greatest quarterfinals in quite some time.
That's it.
That's
it, big brain.
There it is.
Thanks so much, rawnblade, for the call. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, have a good one.
I had my thumbs up and everything because that man made it seem like it was a positive thing. Look, that guy, I'm subbing. Wait, do I have a sub already? Let me see if I have a sub already.
All right.
Before I do want to
There it
add,
is.
Yeah.
like, so there was a caller earlier that was talking about like players being set up for the right scenario. I mean, the same applies for staff. Like, I know I was talking about drafts for like Nukeduck Mithy. Like, I mean, I don't know how much control Mithy had over C9 drafting. I don't know how much control Nukeduck had over 100 Thieves drafting. But like, it is really clear that, you know, it applies for staff too sometimes. And draft isn't always on the coach. I feel like it was a good
Nope.
example with FlyQuest.
It's like it's most on the players. You can,
yeah,
as a coach,
that's like
you
a
can
wild
push-
fan
It-
sentiment.
it-
It's a wild
yeah.
fan
It
sentiment to
actually,
me.
it actually is a lot more on the players than
Yes.
Yeah.
you would be led to believe. There's very, especially in the West, like very few setups where the coach actually has like straight up, like coaches might have like final say, but they don't really have like final say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a lot more of a 50-50. So.
Your coach can push the players and give them ideas, and it really depends on whether they pick it up. I remember being in an atmosphere where a coach was like, "What about Cillian?" If they don't pick up on that one, then we just move along playing Leona. that's what it just turns into.
Okay, so we're headed off to get our next caller. Thank you, Cubby, for doing that. We're gonna also shout out Insert Coin for subbing for 5 months. Still hasn't let me know if he's taking my carpool to Vegas for MagicCon,
Wait a minute.
but you know that's how it goes. Shavul,
Okay.
thank you for the 47 months. What's up, Rez?
Cole says Spawn said he does 90% of the draft. There's a difference between doing the draft on stage and then building up what the draft would look like in practice. If a player doesn't play, like for instance, let's just throw a random champion out there, like a Seraphine mid. If they haven't played Seraphine mid in solo queue and they haven't played Seraphine mid in scrims, and they're like, what about a Seraphine mid on stage? Spawn's gonna say, fuck no. That's the control of what you mean by he does 90% on draft. That's what I mean. Yes, he may say he has final say on stage, but what we're talking about is building the champion pool that's ready for stage prior to that.
Shalom is here. Shalom, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Shopify. I mean, I'm Queens. I'm calling from Queens.
From Queens. Okay. I'm very curious what your take is now. What's your take?
Shopify is back, damn it. All right.
Were they ever here to begin with?
Is coming. They were certainly here. They basically qualified for playoffs by beating Dig, but it is what it is. LCS, it's okay. Shopify's back. King Fudge is back in the top lane. He quit the gym. He broke up with his girlfriend. He's done partying, and he stopped buying great clothes. He's putting on the Shopify jersey. Contracts is not teamless. He's on the best org. And to prove it, look at where we put our money. Simu Liu and Niski. All right? Niski's back, and that's 400K Niski to you. He clears our region. NA talent, who? All right? Talk about boomerangs, Travis. All right? Guess what? This is the triple boomerang. All right? He's back again. We got contracts, and him are going to be the greatest NA duo ever. And we got B-Voy coming back in the bottom lane. Let's just get someone with hands for support. Please don't give me contracts and Hui again.
Cubby, you did Jamada so dirty with these takes. What's he supposed to say about Shopify's new roster lineup, you know?
hey, this is fine by me. This guy's cadence and his I don't even care if he's right. I don't even care if he's wrong.
I'm
right?
excited.
Like he got me hyped up. So I don't need to know about the LCS right now. That was
you're
incredible
about
speech.
to know about the LCS, I guess. Cubby, do you have in front of you the rumored lineup for this Shopify thing? It was a leak from Niski's.
It was a
stream,
leak
right?
from Niski's stream. The
That's
rumor is that
400K Niski.
it's Fudge, which has been reported on. Contracts, which has been rumored. Niski, and a high import AD, which technically B-Boy would set the precedent for, but that's not locked. And LLA support, which for me, I assume it's Ackerman, and that frankly sounds uninspiring, but currently I'm pretty uninspired about support. So yeah. That's the rumor.
And I guess the people saw he wrote 400, which I guess is the implication that he's going to make 400K. Oh, it wasn't Niski's that streamed that. It was like him talking to somebody else on a stream, I guess.
It was leaked somewhere.
French streamer.
But yeah.
Named Tiki. Are you familiar with this person, Jamada? Tiky? Okay.
Not at all.
Yeah. So first off, the craziest thing about all this is a $400,000 contract in 2025.
Well, I mean, it adds up because Shopify Rebellion were in the hunt for Jojo was the rumor, and I know that Jojo still got a pretty nice contract. So, yeah.
I've always been hearing rumors that Shopify had money, and now we know where it's going. They're actually
they had to just show up and fucking shit the bed for an entire year, and then they're
buying
like,
the
I
Jungle
guess
Whisperer.
now we'll spend money.
Yeah.
I like that you said Shopify is back, by the way, Shalom, as if they were ever here to begin with.
That's crazy. The man's clearly a fan. What are you trying to do? Shit on his fandom?
Thanks, Raz. I appreciate it.
I got your back.
Why were you a fan of Shopify in 2024?
I mean, they have teams in other games.
I know. I want to hear
Shalom.
Shalom.
But yeah, I apologize. Yeah, sure, please.
Shalom, why were you a fan of Shopify in 2024?
I mean, certainly this Shopify slander is going real crazy right now. But that's okay. I mean, I get it. They didn't show you a lot in 2024, but what they showed me, all right, is that they can do it, okay? They can make it happen. Look, they signed Simu Liu, okay? That guy was in Marvel.
Okay, but wasn't that after LCS Finals or something?
His name.
No, I looked up how to pronounce it before the episode started.
Okay, that is how you say it. Yeah.
Simu Liu, all right?
I'm going to challenge it then.
Of course, Shopify did not have the best 2024 split, but as I said before, I'm a TSM hobo. This is my team, all right?
Okay, you're a TSM fan that didn't get off the boat.
All right, came back. That's the only credence I have is that if Boogie doesn't find a team, I'll be pretty upset. But the new Shopify.
Okay, you gotta stop. You gotta stop yelling. You're gonna.
I mean,
no,
I like
yelling.
I like
keep
it.
Yelling.
Personally,
yeah.
Thanks, Jamada.
I'll be honest. If it ends up being Contracts Jungle, I feel like that's the strongest part of this rumored roster. I think Niski and Contracts may or may not be able to, threaten for a top 4, top 3. But also, I can see why Jojo said no. So there's that too.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa!
I mean, is this okay?
I'm saying no if I see what was it, like 700,000 a Spanish team is sending my way. I am eating that money up.
True.
I'm eating it. That's crazy.
Can I
now
can I
Europe
say something?
is the sugar daddy.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
go
please.
ahead, sugar daddy.
Cut in on these guys.
Because I have two things to say as a complete outsider to this particular roster, outside of Niski, I guess. Niski has a very good knack for working with good junglers. Mm-hmm. So now I'm gonna say this. I can't remember the last time Contracts unfortunately found himself on the roster.
Hey, shut your mouth up. Okay, never mind.
But I still have in my head the image of Contracts from 2016, 2017, the C9 splits, right? Where he was this young, bright-eyed kid who was like, he just came in, dominated NA for a while. I think that a player like Niski is the kind of person that would very much re-enable that level of heights in a player, for one, especially just because of how important mid jungle typically is in a team environment. Say what you want about how, because I know some people will maybe speak on like Niski conduct, especially from like Mad Lions and how he perhaps interacted with Elyoya. I think that has a little bit more to do with Elyoya than it does to do with Niski.
I would agree
just
with
my
that.
personal opinion. But again, Contracts doesn't come across as the kind of guy that's going to be super hard-headed, right? At all. And if anything, he seems like the kind of person that's going to be very happy to take up a leadership role at this point, and Niski is the exact same kind of person. So as long as the rest of the roster, again, going back to the earlier point on one of those takes we spoke about with like player personality and things meshing and making sense on a personality level, I would be very surprised based on the very mental parasocial relationship I have with Niski and Contracts if they don't get along Fudge seems like has always seemed like a very hard worker, and I don't really have much else to say about it other than he's always performed relatively well inside
You've
of the
missed
LCS.
the 2024 narrative.
I won't speak on the 2024 narrative, right? I didn't see it. I wasn't a part of it.
Sure.
But as long as they sign a good bot lane, because I often think that teams are very frequently capped by the level of their ADC. As long as they sign a competent bot lane, rookie, veteran, doesn't really matter. This is the foundation of a really good roster. So I think if you're a Shopify, I'm gonna say you can make that face all you want, Cubby. Niski is fine. Niski is fine.
Oh, no, I don't have any issue with Niski. I just that bot lane isn't going anywhere. I'm sorry.
And that's obviously the big question. You've said that there's like the potential of like B-Boy and someone else. Yeah, it could potentially stink. If that stinks, then I think, just put your hands together and pray that the meta kind of ends up not being super bot lane reliant, and you're in for
Niski will be
an okay time.
If this happens, he'll be the I don't even know what is a above a quadruple. What's the 5 number for
a pentuple?
Double, triple, quadruple,
quintuple.
Quintuple. Okay. He'll be a quintuple boomerang, where he'll have come to North America, gone back to Europe, come back to North America, gone back to Europe, and then come back to North America.
You might as well just stay for a damn green card.
I'm sure that's what teams will be working on the moment he lands.
I have faith. The only thing that's going to be questionable. Do you guys remember the last Latin American support we had?
Was that
Anybody?
Destiny?
I mean, Ackerman.
Yeah, he's Australian.
Ackerman was technically in LCS before, no?
Newbie?
Yeah,
Newbie.
You can cast that at newbie. It was newbie.
Yeah.
It didn't work out too well. In general,
great.
and also whenever you watch what's it called? Champions Queue, generally speaking, there's a gap there. So I'm not looking forward to that. That's going to be the hole that I see. That's actually quite surprising if that's the case. I don't know. Like, even though I wasn't really inspired with support pool in tier 2 outside Chime, rest his soul as he becomes a lawyer or something like to that nature. I was like, okay, well, I didn't expect that we'd go to LLA. We'll see if he performs and if that's where we get.
I will speak on like the other NA support prospects, because I'm in Raz's camp where it's the other strongest supports where it would be Zyko, Diamond, and Breezy. Zyko is the only one that hasn't seen LCS before. Breezy hasn't, I guess, but he's like been in the system. Outside of that, though, like I feel like support is a role where I would look to roll the dice on. Cryogen and Mixture are both pretty good. Mixture was NACL OQs and Cryogen was the sub for Chime. He didn't end up playing, but I know he got scrim time and is talented. And then the team I'm working with, our support is actually an HLE and Gen G trainee, so he would be an import, but he's actually really good and probably better than most of the NACL supports. So I'm hoping that we'll see what kind of like how the off season pans out. But like I'm biased towards the team I'm working with right now, but he is a kid that is like he's actually really good. So I'll be trying to get his VODs in front of people. So
the other thing that would be interesting, and speaking of boomerang, is like we do know, or there was a rumor or report or something that like Han Sama was a potential departure from G2. And so I guess that would be an interesting option for them if they want to do something along those lines.
Depends on how much money they'd want to spend, eh?
I mean, if they're giving Niski 400k, then they're still back in the 2022 days.
I mean,
2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jamada, do you know the Hans contract situation?
No, not at all. I mean,
apparently,
from what Rahman tweeted. Oh, so do you have something to say?
Apparently, he's still on the TL contract, which would have been really big from back then, like in that era.
Wait, that would have to be ending this year, though, right? Because he did 1 year at TL, then 2 years at G2.
Potentially,
so unless they extended it at that number or something, I don't know. I guess we could
I'll pull up the database real quick, because we'll see when it ends.
Go for it.
He's banking.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's hard banking.
Is he making USD or is it Euro? That's.
I mean, either way,
I'm pocket watching.
the same.
No,
it converts to the same. In
the
value
contract
right now.
expires in 25. Fine. He expires in 25. So if he's still on that same contract, I mean, good for Hans.
Well, shit, that's crazy.
I thought the max contract they could sign was a 3 year, so maybe they extended or something. I don't know, but
They must have.
All I'm saying with how he played when he was on Team Liquid, NA is clearly the harder region. So I think taking the challenge to come back would be the clear choice for him.
We have
It wasn't
24.
it wasn't the fact that TL just put together 5 veterans and prayed that it would be good, and it just ended up being a big lump of shit. Nah, it had nothing to do with
let's
that. Man.
gloss over some of how the team fights transpired.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
I mean, to bring it back to the first call, like when we're talking so much about giving people credit, outside of the question for me is, these are for the most part inarguably really good players that we're talking about potentially ending up on the Shopify lineup.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, can the org support that? Because I don't it has been difficult for North American orgs to find the ability to be successful in a lot of cases with good rosters, outside of a few exceptions, right? Like C9, TL, 100 Thieves, I guess. FlyQuest most recently.
I would say with a topside core, if those rumors are true, of Fudge, Contracts, and Niski.
Fudge's been reported on.
Actually. Oh, sorry. Say that again.
Fudge's been reported on. So yeah.
Yeah. So the alleged topside of that, as long as they have good strategists, right? Like people that are willing to put together, good scouting reports, good draft ideas, and things like that. That topside alone, I think, could coach themselves. Like I don't think there would actually be a big issue in that. A leader figure is nice as long as it's not a fraud. Big thumbs up. I know it's hard to come by these days, but
that's such an EU mentality. I feel like is like just have the players coach themselves.
But that core very
but also the team is made up of 5 players, Jamada. And they the top half has to work with the bottom, etc. I guess I've seen what the Dignitas roster, you could have said, was able to coach themselves, and this year they had a terrible run. So I am skeptical of organizations until they can prove to me that they as an organization can handle good players and make them succeed. Time has taught me to be skeptical of North American orgs, I guess I would say.
Okay, if you're a team that's coaching themselves, you have to have players that are willing to listen to each other. I would imagine that FlyQuest and Team Liquid have players that are able to coach each other, their younger core. So I think that is a thing that's happened. And also, for the one thing that Niski provides, he is just a glue. He is always somebody's what is this team situation, and I'm gonna fit best in this situation. There were times where he was supposed to just be the hard carry, and he became the hard carry. This is way back when, God, I don't even remember what the Envy. And there was another team as well when he went Splice, I think, or something. I can't remember.
He went to Splice after,
Yeah. So those teams, he realized he needed to be more of the carry, and he had some of his best splits because he put resources into himself. Whereas in the other splits, especially when he was with Elyoya,
man's on welfare.
He poured his resources into someone else, and he became an MVP doing that and making his jungler look like $1 million. So I think that with this team, just having players that are very eloquent, willing to work with each other, like Contracts, Fudge, and Niski, and be able to align is good, because we just saw a team like Dignitas that weren't able to align it quickly on what is their identity.
No, I am a huge Niski stan, so I fully back this. We should start to wrap up. I don't know if Cubby, did you have a final thought?
It'd be good to have Niski in the region, and I remember last year I was sitting here at this point of the offseason, if you don't have Jojo or Palafox, you're going to be behind when it comes to mid. I was wrong about that, but I do feel like the FlyQuest and TL bot lanes, if those two do stick together, are going to be pretty far ahead anyone else coming in. Especially if you think about Berserker, if he's not in the league, that's probably most of their competition. I really hope FBI is back in the league. He was criminally underrated this past year. Still a really, really good player, much like Contracts. So I just don't know, off the bat, especially with how young these guys are and how much more they could improve, what competition there's going to be for bot lane. I think it's going to be those teams are going to win a lot of games based on their bot lane. So that's all.
Thanks so much, Shalom, for the call. Anything that you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, Shalom. Thank you.
Shalom, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Get it right, Travis.
Shopify fighting. Shout out to, forgot to shout them out last time, to my divas, Dom and Ruby. And let's go Dodgers. Fuck the Yankees.
Yeah!
Nice.
That's what I'm talking about.
Thanks so much. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Oh,
That
I
was
forgot
the best color
Sven's.
of the night.
That was fun. I forgot Sven's back on C9. They can definitely challenge bot lanes too. But I think that like just from the outside looking in right now, I do think that bot lane's like going to be very variant in strength. So
Yeah.
All right. We've got one more call to go, but before that, we get to shout out NZXT. Thank you so much to NZXT for sponsoring the show. This whole show is being broadcast to you live from my NZXT PC. It's been a beauty to own this thing. We had a delightful shout out, I think last week it was, from somebody shouting out NZXT. And we've been doing some really good stuff with them lately and having some great conversations. So hopefully we get to do even more with them in the future. But if you are interested in getting not just a PC, you could totally get a PC. They have amazing PCs. But also if you're a builder and you like to build your own, they have amazing components. You can go check them out at nzxt.co/Travis. That's com without the M. When you do, you'll see a custom page that's been built. There's also a link that we can get in the look, Numi's already posting it in the chat. You can go check them out. They've built this custom page that shows you the setup that I have with the PC and build that I have. So if you want to take a look at like what I'm running this show on, it's pretty hefty. But also you can shop for accessories over there, components, etc. They have some deals on gaming bundles right now that are going on. You can save up to $340 on gaming bundles. There's a link at the top, a little purple bar at the top if you see that. Use code Travis5 whenever you check out, because that code is going to stack with their sales and all sorts of cool things that they're doing. I've heard that as we get closer to Black Friday, that code will also be working on all that. So it's a really cool thing that they're doing where, like, again, most of the time you can't use a code whenever there's a sale or a promo going. These things stack. So it's awesome that NZXT is doing that. They are an amazing supporter of Hotline League. We love having them as a partner. Thank you so much to NZXT for sponsoring the show. All right, off we go to the last caller.
also shout out to guest of the show Kangas, who just got an NZXT computer.
Oh
this
yeah,
week, so,
I did see that. Yeah, Kangas, who's been on the show frequently, tweeted out he used my code and bought the PC, which is, it's cool to see people in the space supporting that. So thank you so much, Kangas. And thanks, Cubby, for reminding me. All right, we got Shavul, thank you for the 47 months. I think I might have got you, but just in case. And then Bowen with the 400 bits. Thank you. Over on YouTube, we don't have any new members. Haven't had any for the last hour, but if you want to become a member, it's a great way to support the show. I just uploaded a members-only video of me talking about my time at Yahoo Esports and some sort of fun stories there. So if you're interested in that or other early access content, you can go check that out. We have our last caller. We have a bonus caller after this, but our second to last caller is here. It is lumost. Is that how I'm saying your name? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. lumost, yeah.
All right, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Salt Lake City, Utah.
Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm going to be there for the Dragonsteel convention in December. So Nexus, Dragonsteel Nexus, I think is what it's called.
Nice. I didn't even know that was going on, so might pull up. We'll see.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, so basically my take, it's the JoJo take. We haven't talked about it all tonight, but I think JoJo going to EU is good for both JoJo, EU, and NA. So, I mean, the easiest part of the take is it's good for JoJo. I think the perspective on him is pretty low after he got his contract terminated for that and the lateness, and I think that ruined his prospects in NA of just like a perspective from GMs. But more of that, it actually gives him a chance at going to Worlds, because now that we only have, 2 seeds next year at most, going from the North American Conference, if JoJo wants to go to Worlds, EU is a better shot, because TL and FlyQuest, they're not going to change their mids. So it's great for him there. And then lastly, the Spanish fans. I mean, if you saw Twitter during this JoJo push for JoJo on Mad Lions, they glaze him harder than anything. It is insane the amount of glazing the Spanish fans do. But more on like the region stuff. I think it's the EU part. Of course, this is an NA talk show, but it's good for EU because it raises the skill of the region. Everyone knows imports raise the skill of the region. Like, we've seen it in NA for so long.
You guys desperately needed it.
Yeah, desperately needed the imports to raise the skill of the region. Like, NA's been doing it for years. Got to pick up on the trends. Yeah. But like, honestly, I do think JoJo will raise the skill of EU.
Why is this good for NA?
Why is it? Yeah, no. All right, yeah. Focus on the NA part. So the NA part, it seems a little rough because after seeing the news, I was crushed as a Jojo fan, as a previous EG fan. But what it does, the instant effect is it gives us respect on the overall world stage, which is what we want as NA fans, is that respect from like the rest of the world and Europe. And in the long run, it's going to open spots for for more tier 2 players to promote up to the LCS because there's less NA talent in the LCS, if that makes sense. So it's more of like addition by subtraction, is we get to see more NA talent by NA talent being exported. So there's more NA.
What if they
players
what
in
if
the
he doesn't get
ecosystem.
like supposedly we're swapping him for Niski? So like I don't.
Well, yeah, like not right now, but like in
Travis,
the long run, you
two
gotta think
words.
that long run.
2 words, Travis. Manifest destiny. All right.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I
Yeah.
do like the Manifest Destiny meme.
We get Niski, and we'll find out who's going to be the mid laner for Cloud9. I'm just
Yeah.
putting it out there. It might be a Korean,
I'm gonna say this really quickly.
Korean
I
challenger
don't.
player.
There's this idea that like GMs did not want JoJo after the sort of rumors or whatever. I don't buy. I mean, again, we were just talking about how there was a rumor that Shopify was in the running. I think the bigger thing is like I don't know if there's a spot for him that he would want in North America. Like, if you're JoJo, I feel like you're kind of looking at
This man
FlyQuest.
said Mirwin Supa instead of Fudge B-Boy, by the way, potentially. So I can't blame him for that. For to be honest, that in a bag.
You're looking at
I mean, why not?
Like Team Liquid. I don't know if they're looking to bring in JoJo, FlyQuest, and maybe 100 Thieves. We
Also,
don't have a lot
in
of teams.
Spain, they have siestas like built into the day. So
Whatever,
you can get your
Jamada.
breaks.
We're kicking off with you here. So
Yeah, kick him off the fucking
Yeah,
show.
I'm good. I'm gone.
Finally.
we're kicking off with you here. Listen, it's late.
Finally kicking his ass off the
Yeah.
show.
When I saw when I saw this report go up, I was ecstatic. I think that a majority of the take is correct. I frankly I don't think I could ever agree that it's good for NA to lose a player like Jojo on a caliber level. But frankly, for Jojo, if his goal is to win not win worlds, but go to worlds, he should never stay in NA. I think it's career wise, it's just probably the perfect thing for him to do. As for the roster around him, I think it's good. I have some opinions about the Mad Lions roster. I personally, and I'll be kind of open about it because I think it's kind of starting to become my brand a bit. I'm very surprised. It seems like they're going to maintain Super on that roster. I think they need a heavier hitting AD. I think they need an AD that's not got a track record of kind of ghosting some very important games. And I think that's something that Super's done on many occasions, very, very frequently. That said, I still think the roster is going to be fine. It still managed to make it to Worlds, right?
I like Alvaro a lot.
Yeah, and Alvaro is one of the best supports in the league, and for a first year, player, that's an incredible feat to say. You're contending with Mickey, with Jun, with Labrov. It's really good to come out from ERLs. I think for EU, it's fantastic. Yes, you can make the memes of like it raises the average level. He's replacing Frescowi. What are we supposed to? It's supposed to go down, respectfully. Yeah. But also, on another note, I think for Jojo, there's just more competent mids in EU to play against.
Yeah.
You guys can all make up your faces.
Sure.
You guys can all make up your faces, but
the powerhouse matchup versus Wairu.
To be podcast listeners, Cubby and I did not change our faces at all. So Jamada's he's scripting that in.
No.
Versus Larson.
No. Raz made up his face. I'm looking at Raz.
Oh yes, I did.
Because everyone will be like, well, Caps is the only person. Like, be for fucking real. Because a majority of the top half of the LEC mid laners are either incredible laners or incredible team fighters. From what I understand, Jojo is a very good laner. Outside of that, sometimes can be caught a little bit lacking. That is my understanding. I'm a very big time outsider. Raz or Cubby, if you have more in-depth thoughts on that point, you can tag along afterwards. But in terms of being actually like scrimming, leveling up, playing against humanoid, even in his decrepit older form, is still going to be better than
Oh my
playing
God.
against some of the mid laners in NA. Even like, though I think he's teamless, like even VTO as one of the like genuinely worst performing mid laners in the league, VTO was a good laner in a very shitty situation. It was about the only good thing you could probably say about VTO for his entire year throughout the LEC. So
I mean,
frankly,
I'm with you on this argument. I am.
Frankly, he actually, the top half of the LEC mids for Jojo, this is a perfect place for him to come and not like test his mettle, but actually get more consistent, higher level reps in than being in an A. And if you don't agree with that take, then you're either just biased or your knowledge on mid laners is just bad.
Oh,
And your
I'm
perception of how you
fucking biased, and I love throwing shit.
you can, but I'm telling you now, playing against Caps, playing against Humanoid, again, even in his old decrepit form, playing against Nuke, who has had a massive step up this year in terms of all aspects of his game. You can only really point towards the rookies and say these are the only ones who you don't really have expectations to lane against Jojo and have a good time.
Few things.
You're on your own, Raz. Just letting you know. I'm going to side with Jamada.
Look. Let's get through this first of all. Your turncoat. So the most important thing is he's in a solo queue system that literally has lower ping and higher competition, and he'll get queues a lot more frequently. Like the actual EUS solo queue will be 10,000 times better than what he'll
100%.
get out of North American solo queue. Sadly, that's actually just like the immediate truth that comes out of it. And the diversity of opponents, I think, is going to be pretty important too. And the thing, diversity of opponents, because a lot of the times there will be a lot more professional players because of the ERLs within the solo queue system. I'm sure he's also going to be scrimming against them.
Oh, and before you carry on your point,
hit me.
The ERL mid laners mechanically have almost always been stupidly crap.
Yeah.
So again, it's just a bigger breadth, like you're about to say, Raz, is a bigger breadth of opponents to actually play against consistently.
Yes, consistently.
And get reps in.
So I do think that he will get better just based off of consistent higher level of play in solo queue and some of the scrims that he'll be getting. It's good. It's fucking good competition. I think people will always kind of, I would say, walk past the competition that there was in LCS only because even though some of the players were actually good laners, holy shit, the support structure for those teams were so bad, you could never really see it. Like, Mask did well in lane, but they just had such a bad mid to late game, and he at times would never really connect well with the rest of the team, that it just didn't look good at all. And by the end, you will forget the individual performances, the individual games, how like he was fucking CSing perfectly in a lot of those games because the team did nothing with their advantages. So it's like that one sucks. Quid is a great player. He had a bad team. And so a lot of the times during the regular season, this is actually kind of feels like it's mirrored to what Mad Lions had for the good portion of their year because they were like 6th, 7th around there. But like that bot lane needed to change before they could be competitive. And people forgot that Sniper looked pretty damn bad at the beginning of the split. So like even though Quid is a great talent, like you never really got to see how good he was outside of lane at that point. And also we just have less teams. So that means you're facing some of the worst players more frequently. So I do agree with you generally that he is facing higher level competitions more frequently. I think that's true. Just wanted to put it out there that we definitely have solid laners in our league in comparison to Europe. And I think the team fighting in Europe is actually like the actual macro within Europe. And I'm not just excluding G2 because G2 is just, in my opinion, the outlier.
Yes.
The actual macro was the worst I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
The second best team was Fnatic, and a lot of the times it was just because they were really good individually at times, but their macro just was non-existent. So I think in terms of challenging yourself as a like in terms of unless if there's like massive changes that are going to happen in LEC from coaching staffs to some of the team identities, like macro was rough, but the team individual players were high level. That's true.
I don't see how this is good for North America, by the way. Like,
Oh yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
Going quickly, returning back to the take. I don't know how this is ever good for anyone. Like,
No, it sucks
again,
ass.
I just
gotta
don't,
think of the long term.
I can't see it. What is the positive?
What do you mean long term?
The long term.
What is the positive long term?
We're gonna bring in other,
take all their slots, and then we have more NA talent across the world.
but that
I wish it worked that way, but like I'm talking with like NA mids that want to make NACL or LCS, and they're watching Jojo walk, and they're like, "How the fuck can I find a spot if Jojo?"
yeah,
can't?
exactly. Like
It's like the opposite. It's depressing.
Here's the thing. I don't think that this is the first time that we're going to see this either over the next couple of years. Like,
No,
absolutely not.
We have, like, if you
LEC
are a
has
North
more money.
American player, there are now far less spots for you. There's no support system to fall back to. I mean, we talked about this for the past year, where like teams exited their need to have a secondary team. So if you have a bad split or something goes weird or whatever, you're not going to go back down to the lower league and then come back up. Like, you're just running at a far greater risk. Team salary or player salaries are far lower than they have been. Shopify, I guess, seemingly excluded. And then we have less spots to Worlds. So if you're a player who wants to be in an ecosystem where you can have access to, where you have relative security and you can have a higher chance of going to Worlds and you can face better competition and play in a better environment, like, I don't think that it's that crazy to suggest that if you can get an LEC spot, you should go do that, which is like really depressing to say, but it's not the player's fault. It is like the decision of the teams and Riot and the league that have put us in this position.
I mean,
Go on.
props to Jojo. Like, I mean, if you're in Jojo's shoes, you were on EG, a staff that got more out of Jojo than C9, which is funny enough in itself, right? And then C9 kicked you out the door and said you were permanently late to get out of your contract. And the other NA projects that are appealing for a player that caliber, there's not space. The most appealing project is SR, and the MDK one pays more and is probably a better project. Why the fuck would he not leave this region that, like, he didn't get the best treatment or situation? He didn't. Like, this guy is a freak talent. Like, I tweeted when he walked, like, we're an unserious region for not being able to court him. Like, Jojo was the player that controlled the most in the last offseason. He is a player that controlled a lot this offseason. Teams just didn't feel motivated to go court him or eat the contract or do what they needed to do to get him, and MDK got him. So I don't know. I'm happy for Jojo. I think that it is more competitive over there, especially for mid. The best tier 2 mid was a Blaze Elf, if that gives you guys a good, barometer for where mids are at. And I got bullied for advocating for importing Mask last year when mid was in a similar situation after a lot of the good mids either went to LCS or decided to not play. RIP Copy, who should have been LCS for a long time. But yeah, like, we are at a point where, like, we have to develop a new batch of mids. And mid was the role in NA where everyone looked at this role like, why can't we get a native mid? Why can we not find a player in our region that can compete everywhere? Jojo was that guy, and we let him walk within 2 years. That's fucking embarrassing. I don't care, like, what else happened. It's embarrassing that we can't keep a player like that. It really is.
I will say, I'm gonna throw this out there. The dynamic between Europe and North America has changed, and this is a conversation that's gonna have to happen at the right time. Because I remember in the past, it's not as if it's gonna come off weird, but just listen to me. It's not as if European teams have not offered a North American player in the past. Like, it's happened in the past. It's not as if it's foreign. Now, this is a different team because this is a Worlds qualifying team. I don't remember a North American player being approached for a Worlds qualifying team. I'm sure there has. But, like, the first thing that North America always had was money. The second thing they always had was, like, I mean, they still have, better location. LA is still always going to be a lot more comfortable than going to Germany. It is what it is. Jamada can agree with me on that one.
It's not even an argument.
So, like, the lifestyle is always going to be a positive. And if the player then retires or thinks about retiring, is like, do I want to go to LA or Germany, or do I want to stream comfortably? Now we're not even in the level where we can stream comfortably and make money off that. Some of the players don't even want to do that. So I think we got the fact that Jojo got offered for that much money. That's crazy to me. That's an offer that's coming from Europe as well. Maybe they always had that money and this is where it's coming, but I think it's that the dynamic has changed where now, more North American players are going to be willing to look across the pond. And last thing is, yes, diminishing spots that Travis has mentioned. There's less spots. So now, like, what, you're not going to you're not going to perform as a pro player, or are you going to go to another team that has, or another region that has more slots for Worlds?
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to say something very controversial. I think Jojo has like the kind of potential to be almost like the reverse Bjergsen for Europe. Honestly,
legitimately, that was a take that someone dropped earlier, and yeah.
Really,
yeah,
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Not either. Not either.
I think that because I'm going to be honest, as things are, I don't think Mad Lions as a organization or a brand right now is the kind of team, unless you are Spanish, that you throw your entire, career onto. He could very easily, in a year and a half, 2 years time, land on a Fnatic or land on a G2 if he decides to stay in Europe. If Caps decides to also retire, if it just happens randomly, you never know. Sometimes the desire in a player just kind of just falls off, and I could see him being on a longevity level the kind of player that just stays in the region, even though he's coming from NA. And I think especially if he has a very, very good first year, depending on what the money situation looks like and what his contract also looks like in general with Mad Lions, I could see him migrating to another team. If another team that's, world's winning prospect levels actually, makes him an offer, which I wouldn't put it past if Jojo has a very good first year in Europe.
Lumost, thank you so much for the take. You definitely got us talking a ton. I don't know if there's anything you want to quickly add to any of this, because I know we kind of talked past you, 10.
No, I think it's fine. I think, it's... I think in retrospect, I'd say it's better for NA players getting more opportunities, but it really doesn't matter. I think it was a good discussion. And
anything you want to shout out?
Yeah. As for shout outs, shout out High School Esports. I played personally in it. It's a very interesting system. You should get high schoolers into esports. It's really fun. And shout out to Pagoda. Their snacks are great. I ate some tonight. It's great. Anyway,
awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for the call. All right, we have one final quick call, a little bonus call. Cubby, do you want to go see if our guest is ready?
I got it.
Oh.
All right.
Are we being set up?
Off he goes. I don't know. I honestly don't know what it's about. I've just been told that it's a fun call.
Oh.
That
but I do
can't
see
be good.
Praeco muting and unmuting, so I don't know if that'll be an issue.
I have a bet who it could be.
I mean, you can see in the Discord.
Well, you can see by opening the Discord.
Okay, let me see this shit. Let me see this. I thought it was going to be like...
Donovan.
We might not have them because it looks like their microphone keeps muting. Oh, okay. Hello. Praeco is here. Praeco, where are you calling from?
Hello, friends. I'm calling from Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. And we should disclose you are the co-creator of Arcane and currently work at Riot Games. What do you want to ask or talk about on the show?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I had messaged Travis that I have a bit of a silly goose question, I'll admit. But I was wondering about something, and I'm curious to get your expert experience here. If Faker could clone himself and have a team of 5 Fakers, would that team win Worlds?
5 Fakers, would they win Worlds? I like this theoretical question.
So you know what's very funny is I think this question has been asked, not on this specific podcast, but it's been asked like before in the past. Yeah. And you know what's really, really funny? In my head, I actually just for some reason think the answer is no. And there's no logical reason for it other than I feel like if we're talking about actual clones and they all think the same, I think even though normally you would love the idea of a team that is like all on the same wavelength, I think in this specific example, in League of Legends, I don't know why, I just don't think it would work. I think you need different perspectives that like actually come together and make a grander one.
Yeah, I'm curious from your perspective, also as a player, like, I think there are certain roles I would think that obviously will transit easier than others, but like where, like maybe like break it down. Like, where do you think it'll fail?
I think it will fail on like on a cerebral level, but not like a Faker isn't smart enough to know how to win from all 5 roles per se, but also he is a mid laner. He's been playing for obviously over a decade now. But I don't know, in my head, just because of my philosophy for how I would build rosters or how I think rosters should be built, I don't think getting 5 philosophically the same from the get-go players is necessarily going to be good for longevity in like a team environment where you're trying to get ideas stirred and created. I think it's too one-track mind.
I like that
I
a
think
lot.
you want idea. I think you want ideas mixed.
Because that's kind of where I'm at on it too. Is like I don't think they fail because they can't mechanically execute in the roles that they've been assigned. The fakers don't. I think that in any kind of team environment, especially around a game as complex and strategic as League, the success of a team oftentimes comes down to the ability for everybody to like argue together and have conversations and discourse and bring in a coach or analyst who can all kind of combine all these ideas and then work together to find like the best solution, right? Like 5 smart people are going to have accomplish more just in terms of concepts and ideas than like one person is. And I think that's essentially what you would get if all these fakers were the same. So like I think that's kind of what you're getting at, Jamada, but I like that.
Yeah.
I don't think I doubt his ability to like play top lane or jungle or something like that. I'm sure he could figure it out. He's incredibly dedicated and talented. But I do think there's an argument where that like maybe like I think that a lot of his success over time has often been because he's played with other good players that have good ideas and viewpoints and decision making that sort of combines with his own, right?
It's really important to have a player that provides a different perspective. I remember when Mako was on EDG, and he's had to have players who are really like young, harsh way of saying it is dumb, but like someone who's like headstrong and wants to take a fight. And he's somebody that always will tell you very clearly to pull it back, to like play back, like disengage, blah, blah, blah. Someone that's willing to challenge your viewpoint. Because if you have 5 players who are similarly minded or just all wanting to take a fight or all wanting to fucking chase further, or 5 players who are all similarly minded and wanting to play as passively as possible, then you really do lose the end goal of the journey, which is kind of combining each other's different personality traits and being able to keep each other in check. I think that's really important. And it's fun because there are some players that will use their off season to learn a different role. I remember, I'll use Chime as an example, because during off season he will terrorize a lot of people's solo queue games because suddenly he's playing jungle, like because he wants to understand the jungler's perspective and really and you know, as a support, it's good to know what your jungler wants best, because there's always going to be the typical clash of a team and being like, well, I want you to skip a camp to dive, but is that really good for the overall game? So I think it's really important to have difference of opinion. But if you do have a player that is really, really, really strong individually, like 5 Chobis, then great. I'm sure that you can make it work, because then you have somebody that's exceptional individually, and you know, it probably has like and is seeing the game the same way. But Faker probably not so much. But I like the idea. I like the challenge.
I think the wild part about this is the impact that one Faker has on that team. Because we saw that team with Poby, and for me, it was embarrassing, like how lost players of that caliber were without Faker, in a sense. I think that the beauty of T1 throughout the tenure of Faker is that you can't always see his style like impacting his team, and it really does feel like at times he is the one that is in the most control of the game. And it is an interesting like theory of, if we have 5 of that, is it better or worse for us? Like, are we more disciplined in playing the game that Faker feels like is the best and we should play? Or like, do you lose the creativity and the people that like push it, and then the bend and break where it's like Faker's like, we had to play this way, or the other player's like, hey, we can do the X, Y, and Z, right? So I feel like that's interesting. I'll go with a no, because I feel like the impact of one Faker is almost greater than 5. And just like the experience and the guidance that single player brings to a team of 5, or the other 4, makes them so much better than what they are. I don't think this just goes for this younger roster that we saw that has only really played with Faker at the highest level. I feel like it goes for the other rosters that we've seen throughout Faker's career as well. Like, just because he has always been a player that is so good, whether it is like early in his career being individually brilliant or later on like making sure that his teams are always brilliant. So
True.
but yeah, it's an interesting. That's the question I get hung up on answering this. Like, because if 5 fakers, if they are just all on the same wavelength, then yeah, I feel like it's great. But I'm curious if I feel like the impact of 1 faker is greater than 5. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's interesting. I mean, I think it kind of, if you imply the notion that playing the different role in the moment will make it that there are relatively different perspectives on like a call, right? Like if he's on a Jarvan and an Orianna, like surely he will have different perspectives on any situation at the same time. Yeah, it's very interesting to think about, especially with like what you said, right? Like over the years, it's unprecedented, right? Like how many times teams have changed completely around a player and still have clawed their way back to the top. You know, it's just unbelievable. So either he's just like, another question could be like, is he just the god, teammate picker / casting person to always be able to find that synergy, or is it really just him? So I don't know. But I think it's fascinating to think about.
Yeah, I think it is. And Cubby, your argument, it was the first time where I kind of doubted my own conviction, because I'm like, yeah, that team did look pretty lost when he was gone. So maybe they aren't actually doing as much for helping him with ideas and concepts. But I do tend to think that like having a diverse set of group of people, like in any sense, is going to actually help you come up with like a better perspective and decision, assuming that all those people are qualified and intelligent on the job that or the task that they've been given. So I think in that situation, like I still stand by the idea that you would want like a bunch of really talented people. I do think five fakers could do better than most teams. I think is what I would say. I don't think that a 5 faker team would be bad, but I don't know if they could challenge whoever the best team is in that year. And I don't know if 5 fakers, for instance, could beat like this current T1. So
yeah,
maybe.
I don't think it would.
Maybe. Praeco, thanks so much for the fun question. We don't normally get stuff like that, so that's kind of cool. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Not really. I mean, I will say it's been really amazing the last week or two, just seeing like the numbers are looking great, for these games that we're seeing that are really fun, and just seeing what massive streams we're seeing. It's just really heartening, so I'm really happy that this is happening, and thanks to you all for doing this, the show. It's always a delight.
Do you have any cool projects coming up anytime soon? Any fun things happening?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
No, I mean, it'll be fun. It's what we were able to do for this second season of Arcane is just a lot more comprehensive than what we could do for season 1, just because season 1, everyone was like, we have no idea if this is total shit or good. And so it was just much easier this time. The whole company is really, coming together to create like this holistic experience for every League player. So I'm hoping people will like it, and that you all will like it. But yep. Apart from that, nothing. No.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Feel free to let Riot know that I think my premiere invite got lost in the mail. They should might need to send a second one.
I'll make sure you get one. I'll make sure you get one.
Got bad news. Got bad news, Travis.
Thanks so much, Christian. Always good to have you on the show. And it's amazing to me that you have the time to sit around and wait for the end of this one as you're getting ready to launch season 2 of yours. So thanks so much for the call.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Catch you later. Okay. That is the show. Thank you so much to Praeco for calling in. That was a fun little treat here at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you to our guests here. We'll do a round of shout outs. Cubby, what do you want to shout out here?
Shout out to Parth, who's putting together the cool bootcamp through his company Saito. It's going to work with a lot of players and send the best of them to Korea. So that started today. And shout out to both TL and FlyQuest. I know that we talked a lot about FlyQuest, and rightfully so, but I think a lot of the hope that fans have come from those two orgs and what those teams have been doing from top to bottom. And man, I mean, FlyQuest, like after game 1, they really had me believing that they could beat Gen G. So yeah, as someone that was a big fan, especially of like some of the players I got to cover in NACL, never thought that like that group would be doing what they are now so early. So props to all those guys on working their butts off. And Definitely like giving me actual fan moments, which is tough to do like when you work in the space. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, thanks to all of our sponsors and these guys for joining us again.
Yeah. How about you, Raz? What do you want to shout out or plug?
Ooh, shout out to Mel, because it got me thinking about Arcane Season 2, and I'm saying there's one character that I've never simped harder for a animated character as Mel. So we pray for Season 2. No spoilers. I'm not gonna say anything crazy, but I pray for Season 2. And also, more League of Legends competition. Can't wait for semifinals. That'll be great.
He was saying Mel from Arcane for folks who had misheard him. Yeah.
What would they have heard?
I don't know. People were saying Warwick or Sona. I think
it's been a bit. The Google's on Mel.
Oh,
today,
I should have told. I don't know if Praeco's still here, but I did a surprise test where I asked the pro players to answer Arcane trivia questions, which was very, very fun, especially because Inspired. And when I said the favorite TV show, it asked him about that. He was like, "Oh, I'll say Arcane because I'm here where Riot is." And so that I was immediately like, I didn't even finish the rest of the goofy questions with him. I was immediately like, "Oh, let's do this surprise test right now about Arcane trivia." And he was not expecting that. It was very funny. But yeah, that one will be a fun one. So, other than that, yeah, we got Jamada here. Jamada, what do you want to shout out?
I will also give a shout out to FlyQuest. I know there's been a lot of tense, vitriolic dialogue spit between the pond here, from Europe over to NA and back and forth. But frankly, they did themselves proud. They did North America proud, and I think they've very much shown that the gap is very much closing at the top end. I think G2 could have done it as well. I don't think TL could have, based on what we saw from them.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that FlyQuest actually came in and made Gen G fucking sweat for it. So shout out to them. I think it was incredible what they managed to achieve. Otherwise, also shout out Don Jake, because he's been doing very well. He's obviously my brother in arms.
Who?
You know who. You heard who I said.
He said Don Jacob.
Don Jacob. Donathan.
Jingleheimer Schmidt?
Yeah. Exactly.
Cartman.
Yeah. Cartman.
Jesus.
Yeah. Cartman is crazy. Diabolical. English Cartman.
Oh, there we go.
That is horrible from you, Raz.
He's gonna enjoy that one.
Yeah, he's been doing incredible lately. And that's my
cool.
guy, man. So shout out to him. Even
my friend John Jake. Yeah. So thank you to Jamada for being on the show. Thank you to Raz as well. Thanks, Cubby, for hosting. I will be this week at MagicCon. So if you are in Vegas and you're going to MagicCon, please say hi if you see me. I try to be pretty friendly. If I'm deck building, I might be unable to talk for a long period of time, but I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a really fun time out in Vegas. And then next week's episode will be on Monday, because I'll be flying immediately afterwards to London for the finals. So I'm excited for Jamada to showcase all the amazing food that they have in London to change my perspective.
Just very quickly, was that next week Monday you're here?
No, I fly a week. I fly on. I do Hotline League on Monday, then I fly on Tuesday, so I land on Wednesday.
You land on Wednesday. Okay. Yeah. Things can be arranged.
Yeah, I'm down. I'd love to.
Remember, he's not going to be giving you British food. He's going to be giving you the colony's food. That's what he's going to be giving you.
I mean, the first thing I'll do is I'll sit him down in a fish and chip shop.
Oh, I don't really like fish.
So you don't really like fish?
Yeah.
Don't worry. We'll figure out the nitty gritty of what tacos you actually enjoy eating.
Can I get some tacos? Anyway, so I'm looking forward. I'll be in London. I'll be at MagicCon. It'll be great. Shout out to Mark for getting married. Congratulations, Mark. And thanks, everybody. Shout out Praeco for calling in. That was really fun. Stick around on stream live if you're watching. We're going to be doing the prediction show after this for semifinals with some friends. and that'll be really good. And then that will be up on YouTube. So if you're listening to this or watching this, go find it. It'll be probably up on Wednesday. So thanks everyone for watching. We'll catch you next week for the pre-final show.